Hello and welcome back to Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan. Today I'm joined by my lovely full cohort of co-hosts, Alex and Alex,
Woo!
Wyatt,
Hello.
and finally Brett makes his triumphant return again.
Full today, baby.
Full
There's
on.
There's gotta be an applause thing. Yes, there is.
I'm glad you found.
And that's my one for the podcast.
Yep, great.
Well
All right. So today we're talking about some games that we all have played in 2024, and it's games that we are thinking about for the awards show. Our awards episode for 2024 is going to be next episode. And we've got a lot of things to cover for this. I think this will help us make some decisions for our own lists and whatnot. But it's also an opportunity for us to talk about games that we probably won't mention a ton in the award show, but feel like they deserve a bigger mention. Because there's a lot of things that release that, like, some of us, because we try to avoid putting the same game repeatedly. We have a lot of games that are going in categories that are like character design or sound or whatnot, where we'll talk about that specific thing. But maybe we also really like the rest of the game, so there's a spot to talk about those. I'm going to just open the floor up to begin with and say who wants to jump into something, who's got a strong pick.
How many of us are going to talk about Dungeons of Hinterberg?
I think all of us.
I
Played it
haven't
at least.
played it yet, but I would. If I could.
I refrained from mentioning it because I knew everyone else was going to.
You got to get on it, Brett. It's so good.
Well, we've said Dungeons of Hinterberg, so that's the first one. Who actually had this on this was Wyatt and Alex, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, you technically went first, so take it away. Go for it.
I finished this before it got its update that you have been enjoying more of the gameplay of. I have to say. So I played an earlier version. Oh my god, it's such a good balance of gameplay between your little overworld areas, your dungeon delving, and then the different relationship upgrade mechanics, and socializing throughout the town. Oh, it's such a good balance with that.
It's such a great loop. And what's interesting about it is that it's a really satisfying loop, but weirdly, and I mean this as in a positive way, it's not one that keeps me like constantly going throughout the whole game. And what I mean is that it doesn't have that like addictive quality, but there's a certain pace to it that's really nice. And part of the reason
plenty of breaks.
Well, exactly. It's like the reason I haven't I've taken such a long time to actually finish it is because I didn't want to rush through it. I feel like a lot of the game and its atmosphere is, for me at least, kind of like missing if you just kind of rush through it as quickly as possible. So
it's
I've
a vacation.
Really
Take your time and enjoy it.
Exactly. No, I've been taking my time with it a lot. And for anyone who doesn't we did a whole Game Pass episode on this not too long ago, but essentially you're a woman on vacation, and a bunch of like creatures and magic portals have appeared in the Austrian Alps, and everyone goes there for vacation to go hunt monsters. It's a cute little concept that they actually take
has a lot of ethical concerns that they get into.
Well, that's the funny thing, because you're
children are allowed at the resort. These are monsters that will hurt people, but I believe it's what they have a rescue team that brings you back if you're knocked unconscious. That's the
yeah.
There's a little kids play pen where they give them weapons to fight cardboard cutouts of the monsters with.
That's one of the most intriguing
thing.
things about it, though, is that like you're playing it first and you're just like, oh, I'm on vacation, I'm slaying monsters, and I'm talking to all these people, and you're like, are we just not gonna address how
no, they get into
weird this concept? Oh no, they do.
Oh,
that's when, because I was enjoying the game, but that's when my ears perked up and they really kind of and not just what I liked about it is that it had a lot of characters who have slightly different views and a lot of kind of different takes on it that I thought was really fascinating.
A wonderful slow burn of a mystery in it as well. At least if I'm not sure, because I've only played through it once. I don't know if there's branching pathways or not, or if you can possibly fail by not engaging with it within the quote unquote time limit that I'm also not entirely sure is real.
From what I understand,
it makes it definitely feel like it's real.
From what I understand, there isn't really a time limit. Because I don't want to go into I don't want to go into why, but I think you can really take your time, and if there is a time limit, it's really long because the game doesn't. Again, it really feels like the game doesn't want you to rush through it.
It hit me on the halfway point where it's just like, hey, it's like, oh right, I'm on a vacation. This isn't going on forever. How much time do I
Yeah.
have left? Oh god, and then that's when I started to really try and like look at the relationship tracks that I was on, trying to prioritize other things, looking for like things I want to include in my build and things like that. Dungeons that
And
I want to get to. Hopefully, I'm not going to miss any.
exactly. Well, no, and like speaking personally, one of the reasons this game like hits so close to me is it's actually fascinating because last year I went on like it was like the first time in a really long time that I went on a vacation from work, which is like this vacation's for me. I'm not visiting anyone. I'm not doing this for anyone else other than myself. And uh it it was something I really really needed, and it was during a time where like I really was like not in a good mood. I was not in a good headspace, and this vacation that I went on really just like I rejuvenated myself in a
Mhm.
way that I didn't think was possible. And I was playing this game. I started playing this game right around the time that happened. And so I feel like it's one of those games that hits you at just the right moment in your life where you feel like you have like this connection to it that you may not have otherwise. Like especially if you there's moments where if you're exploring around, you can actually just not go to any dungeons or really fight any monsters and just take time to relax in these certain spots in the areas that you go to, and it allows you to increase your health. But it also there's a whole moment of Louisa, the main character, just kind of reminiscing on her time during this vacation and what life was like before, what life might be like after she
Mhm.
returns home and everything. And it just like I don't know, it really spoke to me in a way I don't think it would have if those two things hadn't lined up so close together. And it's a big reason why I love this game as much as I do.
Yeah, I think I
It's
haven't finished this yet either, but I've played a fair bit past where we did for the Gamescast episode, and I plan to finish it when I have more open time. But I definitely,
There's
I
so
think,
many games.
it's so many games, dude.
yeah.
But there's a lot of really, really fun stuff in here. I also just love the art style. I think this
Oh
to
yeah.
me is like kind of what I enjoyed about Sable's art style, except it doesn't hurt my eyes to look at. Which, again, that is not a thing that everyone has with Sable, but specifically on my setup, when I was playing Sable, it would do this like flickering thing with the black dots in the sand, where they like shift all the time.
It's also something
Um,
they've hopefully fixed.
yeah, I believe they fixed it, but it's the only game that's ever made me feel something akin to motion sickness from that, which was crazy. But
Lucky.
I think this is the Dungeons of Hinterberg has a similar style that I really, really like, uh, and I think works really well. It
Yeah.
also just
And
got lots of fun abilities.
well, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
amazing the like high bar of quality throughout the entire game. And this I'm pretty sure isn't this like a debut title for this developer too? I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
that sounds right to me.
It's incredibly impressive. If this is their first, well, now I got to double check myself,
Yeah,
but
this is why I
I'm
had
pretty
Published Open.
sure.
I believe this is the first published one by this same studio, but I think it's a lot of people that have had experience before.
Yeah, but again, even
That
for like
shows.
a studio with a lot of experience behind it, it's still a debut studio, and that still comes with its own complications when you're working on your first title. But it just it's there's such a high bar of quality throughout the whole game. Astounding, honestly.
Also, just fantastic use of color. That's always a thing that gets me with
Mhm,
games, is when video games
mhm.
forget that they're video games and they're allowed to be colorful. And I think it's really, really fun to see a game that just like embraces going crazy with the artistry
Yeah,
of the
each
areas and
area definitely
environments.
has like a distinct color to it. There's kind of like a swampy. I'm not even going to attempt to try and pronounce these names because they're.
It's in the
I'm
Alps.
not
It's
going to butcher
futile.
it. Yeah, I'm not gonna butcher it on air here. But there's areas where it's like there's like a swampy kind of
Hmm.
area where there's a lot of greens. There's obviously like mountains of snow. So there's an area that's very white, but then there's areas where it's just like this beautiful, almost like dawn orange throughout the whole thing. Like all the leaves are this like really nice like fall color, and it's so pretty.
I do think the swamps area abilities are my favorite in game,
Yeah,
at least for
yeah,
combat.
yeah. It's interesting, and to add like more character to all these areas, you have unique like spells. Like one is traversal. I mean, they're both technically traversal, but you can also use them for combat as well.
Combat,
And
puzzle, traverse. Oh, it's so fun.
yeah, and they're like really versatile in that. It's just so well designed.
Yeah.
And there's an amount of content in each area to where you never feel like any of the abilities get stale at all. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only time that I really felt like kind of a lot of the spells didn't really work for me were ones that you could unlock that were like, oh, this is basically one of the area spells that you get in another area, but you get to use it. It's like one of your permanent spells, which was like, like
Yeah.
that was the only part in terms of like the variety of spells where it was a little disappointing. But
And
yeah.
Ryan, I don't know if if you've already gotten to this part or if it'll get you further, but there's a spell that you can unlock from beating a boss that's swarm missiles.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's always what I want to see. All right. Well, I think that's a good amount of talking on Dungeons of Hinterberg. We really liked about that. So I want to bring us in, stay in the indie sphere, and bring up something a little bit wacky that I know at least Brett has heard about, but I'm not sure if you've played it. 1,000 Times Resist is
Only played the beginning.
same. So I have not finished this game. 1,000 Times Resist, I have played one session of. A single session. I played it for 4 hours in a row.
Is this a
after
relatively
opening it.
new game, or is this an old game that
New.
It came out last year.
New-ish.
It sounds
Yeah.
familiar. Okay. I don't know if we've seen a trailer for it.
It got a bunch of like writing acknowledgments last year, which limited me picking it up. It's also relatively inexpensive. Very, very good from the start. I don't know why I haven't gone back to it at this point, legitimately, because I think I maybe made it like halfway through the game, single session.
Maybe you can relate, Ryan, but I feel like my reason was like I was getting through it and it got to a point and I'm just like, you know what? I can feel that this is going to be some pretty heavy shit. So I'm going to wait
Yeah.
until I am at the proper I want to be a proper sponge for it and not be in like a weird mood or like
I need the
in a
mindscape to
Discord
be
call or
correct.
something. It's which is
Oh,
fitting for the
that is
game, but yeah.
that is an art style.
No, I think that's definitely true.
Yeah, it's cool.
Because I think it was really fun. The art style is pretty crazy. It's one of those things where it just like you can tell that this is a game made by people who were not constrained at any point
Yes.
while they were making it by going, we can't do that. Instead, they did whatever they had to like cut the right corners to produce this, and I think it's a really, really cool game because of that. Definitely feels very similar to a lot of, I would say, like the Japanese sort of Danganronpa style games, with a bit less extra choice at the start. It seems like a little bit more restrictive in terms of what you're doing, at least from the part that I played through. But still tons of cool stuff to explore, and lots of very interesting story stuff going on. Alex, did you have a thought?
Which one, me?
You started speaking.
Yes, you made a noise.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm currently reading about it because
Oh yeah. Okay.
Swear I thought I saw something about it. So
Yep.
I'm filling myself in.
But yeah, it's really interesting. It's basically the idea that the whole entirety of the human race became very susceptible to some type of disease that slowly killed everyone. It's very interesting. It's a thing that like everyone now is clones based off of the one person who was immune to it. Cool setup. Definitely a game I want to finish, and I felt like it deserved a mention, even though I haven't played enough of it, I think, to really throw it for an award on anything. All right. Who's got another game they want to dive into?
I've got another indie game if we want to keep the indie game train going.
The indie sphere.
Absolutely.
I can't remember if we did a video on this one or not, but I spent a lot of time this year playing web fishing with friends. And
Yep.
I think I played it with all you guys. I can't remember if the cameras were on or not though, but
You know, I don't think they were. I think we just ended up playing web fishing for like an hour.
Yeah,
after
okay.
a podcast episode.
I don't know. It's great. It's not it's not a crazy game. There's not a ton of content. There's a surprising amount of content, I feel like, but it's a simple little game. It reminds me a lot of like Animal Crossing, as well as just sort of fishing mini games in games. I don't know. It's a simple little indie game, but it's a ton of fun. It's great. Like, it's got some great social stuff going on in the game, and just a great game to like chill out in a Discord call with some friends and catch weird 2D fish. And like, there's just enough in the game that like kept me engaged with like moving forward with some kind of progression to find another thing or unlock another thing or whatever. And I don't know, it was not anything I had heard of that I like was expecting, but it turned out to be a really fun game, so I felt like it deserved a shout out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I played of web fishing too. And I've still kept it installed, even though I haven't played it recently. It's just sitting there. Should I be in the mood? Because it's definitely the type of game where, like, if I was in the mood for like a, I don't play trucking games, but I imagine if people that play Euro Truck Simulator have a similar feeling where they're like, now I'm gonna go web fish for a little while and just relax.
That's how I play.
The online equivalent of taking a crisp autumn night drive.
Yep.
Yeah, I've played for 8.5 hours. Apparently, that's more than I thought I had. Wow. But it makes sense, and I'm excited to see whatever updates they come out with as the game progresses.
Yeah. Okay, I have another quick mention to toss in here, just because I think a lot of us will have forgotten about this game, and so I want to mention it before I again forget about it, because it wasn't on my list specifically, but it came up when I was looking up some information about something else. Nightingale. I think a number of us were excited about this ages and ages ago. When we
I was excited,
saw
and
trailers.
I never ended up playing it.
Here's the thing. I was excited until I realized that it was a survival crafting game, and then I checked out.
So I do like survival crafting games with the caveat that I hate PvP ones. I really like chill PvE.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way.
Survival crafting, which is like we've been playing a ton of Abiotic Factor. This is where I can note that we have continued to play Abiotic Factor.
Yeah.
Far beyond the recorded portion of it, and I fully intend to continue playing that. But yeah, Nightingale was really interesting to me. Because Nightingale was pretty universally panned in early access when it first came out. It got a really big update midway through the early access during this year.
On it.
Yeah, I think you did.
Fantasy League.
I think you did.
That's why I never ended up playing it. I was bitter.
Yeah, in September, it got a huge update that basically reworked a ton of the progression systems and how the game works to be a little bit just better constructed. And after that, it went on a really deep sale, so I picked it up and played a bunch. I think it's pretty good now. I actually think it's got a really interesting setup compared to a lot of other survival games, and it captures the thing that I always want out of survival games, which is exploration. That's always like number one for me, is how fun is it to explore.
Looks like a lot of different types of environments.
Yeah, and Nightingale, the problem with the start was that there was very few environments, and there was very few like modifiers, because the whole idea is you like put a card for the base environment, and then you modify it with another card, and there's like a third extra modifier you can toss on, and that'll sort of generate the surroundings. When the game first came out,
hook.
Yeah, it was really limited in terms of what that would actually do. Now it seems like there's a lot more variety, just baseline. I think it's still the same 3 biomes, but they're a little bit more drastically modified. And it was just a lot more fun to play through than what I had been told this game was like at the time. So I'm glad to see that it's doing well. I hope it actually gets to full finish at some point. Because I don't know how well it's doing financially. I imagine it's probably not as good as they would have wanted, considering their early reception. But
wasn't it Oh, I was going to say I thought it was a known developer, but doesn't look like it.
Well,
I think it's a lot of experience.
BioWare, right?
Yeah, okay. It was
BioWare devs involved.
Inflection is the developer, and I believe it's got a ton of experience behind that team.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, because like I end up playing a lot of like survival crafting stuff with you guys that I do enjoy. It's just like by default, I'm just not into it, and you really have to do something really out there and different to really get my attention. And outside of the cool kind of like I don't even know what kind of genre, not genre, but what kind of era this is in. But outside of that kind of cool looking setting, I was like, oh, it just seems like a survival
The
crafty
setting does a lot of the
thing.
heavy lifting for this one,
Yeah,
for sure.
I could see
That
that.
is a
It is a
huge
unique
draw
setting for a
for it.
survival game. It is a unique setting for a survival game, I will say.
Yeah.
But after a while, I just get sick
Oh,
of
what is
logging
that
into
type?
a game and then immediately start cutting down trees over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Sometimes you just want to cut some trees down, and that's okay.
Hey, look, we've been playing a lot
Sometimes
of
it scratches
Abiotic
an itch.
Factor, and sometimes I just sit there for 2 hours boiling water.
All right.
I
Who's
want
got
to
a
play
next game they want
Abiotic
to talk
Factor
about?
again, but the amount of motion sickness and the fact that I feel like when we started playing, we were in the Stone Age, and now you guys have moved on to nuclear power. Uh,
Don't worry about it.
That's whatever. It's cool.
can't believe I missed the train world.
Okay.
Brett, I don't think
Let's
you've
go
given
back.
us a game yet. What do you want to talk about?
It's my turn, and I'm here, so it's time to talk about something fucking weird. So,
Hell yeah.
the is a game that I played at some point during the last 365 days that I don't remember exactly when, but it's called The Tower on the Borderland. And it's sitting at a cool 34 reviews on Steam, so that's how you know it's a real blockbuster hit. Um, it's just a weird kind of like it's like a third person shooter, but in the way that like you wouldn't really call like Metal Gear Solid a third person shooter, but it's third person and you shoot things. Um but also like Metal Gear Solid, you play as a singular member of a group of highly trained spec ops soldiers that all have animal themed names and roles, much like Foxhound. But instead of doing anything even remotely realistic, you're plopped at the bottom of a big uh, endless tower, and you just got to get to the top. Um, it's very clunky. It's very slow, and
This game looks sick as hell, Brett.
playing it.
There's
No,
the intricacies at which it takes to aim a gun in this thing.
it's yeah, it's slow and clunky on purpose. Because like again, it's not just like a third person shooter. You kind of have to finagle your way around at the game speed that it wants you to play as, which is definitely not something that everybody will enjoy, but I certainly did. Because it really scratches the itch of just like cool, kind of weird boss fights, like for this kind of game. Um,
Hmm.
which like again, I keep thinking of Metal Gear Solid, but it really like you're not just fighting guys in those games. Like they'll throw you against like a helicopter that you could just like you have to dodge and then fire missiles at when it's flying away from you. Or like you have to like use heat vision to see an invisible guy or something. Like it's those kind of themes of boss fights, but now that they have no attachment to reality whatsoever, and they can just go completely off the rails. Even though there is a helicopter guy that you do shoot
There-
at, usually
the
Nice.
phase
second you
two.
mentioned that, he popped up on on the Steam slideshow for it.
Yeah, dude, it's because I got that universal good writing. It just falls into place like that. Um, but yeah,
Hell yeah.
usually the first phase of those is something like guy with gun. But then you can see in the trailer there's like a guy riding a deer with like a lance and shit.
That says "Prepare
Um,
to Die."
yeah, it's pretty cool. And the story is very mysterious. The graphics are really blocky and foggy and foreboding. And
Very
I mean,
PS1.
yeah,
Mm.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's not the
that
kind of
style
game
of
which is-
game has had a big renaissance recently, which I really like.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
you say you got to climb a tower. I instantly have to. If I see a tower, I got to get to the top of that thing.
Of course. It's the
Yeah,
it
it's the
looks-
simplest rule of game design.
It's so enticing.
I'd also be
True.
remiss to, after you mentioning this game, Brett, not mention Dread Delusion and Lunacid,
Yes.
which both Brett and I were very positive on last time we talked about them ages and ages ago while they were both still in early access, both of which have released and are really, really good.
Yep.
They were released.
Yeah, really worth checking out both of those
I really want
games.
to pick up. I might pull the trigger on Dread Delusion.
Like, if
Might
you
as
are
well.
looking for
It's
like
very
a
good.
Kingsfield Morrowind combination,
Yeah.
you can't really
like
do
the
much
color
better.
pink.
Love that chunky pink sky.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think great picks. I love seeing games like Towers and Lunacid and Dread Delusion and whatnot getting made, because I think they're really, really cool and always very fun. All right, who's got something else to bring us to?
I've got another.
Oh, go for it, Alex. Go for it.
I've got another clunky
fight.
game. And
Go
another,
for it.
Probably
We're in the
another
clunky
Brett
game
pick.
territory.
This is a PS2 game, so it is not a 2024 game of the year, but it is one I played in 2024 for the first time. And I felt like I wanted to shout out, I don't know the full title, I think it's probably Mobile Suit Gundam Zeonic Front.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
A Federation in there somewhere.
Yeah, Mobile Suit Gundam Zeonic Front.
There we go.
I just put it down as Zeonic Front. I just wanted to shout this one out because I thought it was really interesting. I had never played another game like this. I've never seen another game to follow it up to be like it. You know, I think it came out in an era where they were trying shit out. I don't know. It's really hard to describe other than like it's kind of like a tactical game, but it's a third person shooter. There's like not really, you're not like actively in the tactics that much. You have to like plan it out beforehand, and then you take control of one of two parties and you can switch back and forth as they both like march on the path that you set before the mission towards the enemy base or whatever. And then you I don't know, you shoot some Federation soldiers. You play as the bad guys, which I'm surprised they never made like a counterpart that was the good guys.
They have the cooler.
I mean, I
looking
have to.
suits.
So I had to delve into my PS3 shelf of things, but there's a lot of these like old PS3 games. This particular one, or PS2 games, is a collection of like the PS1 and 2 games. If I can
Oh,
put
is
this
it
on there.
like is it in there?
I don't
Oh,
think Zeonic Front's in here because I think it was a little
Oh,
too
damn.
new. But this is a collection of other stuff. It's got Side Story Blue Destiny. Oh, Zeonic Front is in here. Zeonic
All
Front, right
All
there.
right, I gotta. What's
Physical
the
copy.
name of the collection?
This
on.
is Mobile Suit Gundam Side Stories. This is a Japanese
I
copy.
had a physical
so
copy of Zeonic Front.
obviously-
Nobody questioned that I had a physical copy of Zeonic Front.
Of course.
Um,
Of course you did.
But yeah, there's
just not
tons
an
of
arm's
really
reach.
cool Gundam games that never really stuck around in the West. Like we got a bunch of
Yeah,
them
and-
in the PS2 era, but not.
I played a couple of the PS2 ones, and they're all pretty good. In fact, I like a lot of them more than I like the current ones. They are pretty clunky. There's a lot that are just kind of like trying shit, where they're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, big robots are cool. How do we get this to work?
Yeah.
Worth it to try them if you have a chance. I
Yeah,
am
I'd
kind
also
of just
say-
going down this episode, putting stuff on wish lists and whatnot. Now.
Oh, for sure. That's like half the intent in
Yep.
here. To keep on the
That's how it
Gundam
goes.
train, I know 3 of us at least have spent a really significant amount of time playing Gundam Breaker 4.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Which I don't think is making like any top spots on our award list, but it is a really, really fun game. There's some stuff from Gundam Breaker 3 I still wish was there, like the longer missions. At the point that I'm at in Gundam Breaker 4, which is probably a little over halfway, I haven't really had any long missions. It's been mostly short battles and boss fights and like arena stuff.
They're
Which
all
is
pretty
really
short.
fun because the combat system is good. Like it's a much more enjoyable combat system than I think even 3. And just the whole of the game, like the customization's crazy good. For anyone that hasn't heard of these games before, they're basically like smash together a Gundam out of all the parts from all the different Gundams that you can imagine, and then you fight with it in action hack and slash stages. They're
And
super
it really
fun.
is like almost all the different Gundams you can imagine. There are so many options.
There are,
It's
like,
crazy.
See,
I think
still have
over
bits on that.
150 or something.
Jesus.
It's all from the perspective of that they are the model kits that you are kit bashing together too. So they
When
have
you
like
buy
the
them in the
box
store, they're
art.
the boxes. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, like they are in real life, and you're breaking pieces of plastic off of enemies to like collect them and use them. And if you're a hyper dork like I am, then you can you can get an extra bit of joy from being able to use every single like armament that something would come with, because there's just too many weapon slots. Like you can just have like more than there are buttons, so they have like multiple quick menus for you to use.
Well, I was gonna ask if you can actually take the actual model kits and like swap the pieces around.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know if that's
can,
something
and
you can do.
you can do them with
Okay.
kit bashing is really popular.
Okay.
It's
With
very
Gundam
fun.
kits especially, because they're built to be used like that. Like they
That's
don't
cool.
expressly say to do it, but most of the parts are very cross compatible.
Mhm.
And
Hey,
yeah,
if someone were feeling nostalgic for Bionicle, maybe they should check out some of those kits. I don't know.
honestly, like a
A lot of them.
Bionicle game
A lot
in the
of people
style
do.
of Gundam Breaker would set me
Oh,
for
that'd be
life.
fun.
Ah, that would be so much
Can I go
fun,
bring back
dude. Just
Bionicle for God's sake? God.
dude, they did, and then nobody bought it, so they will never do it
What?
again.
Yeah, but
Oh
they brought it back
Yes, they
no!
weird
did,
and
and then
underwater,
nobody bought it.
not
Oh.
normal. Not my
Oh,
Bionicle.
I think I know what you're talking about. The hero bots with the big H on their chest.
No, that was something different.
Yeah, that
That was
was them
Oh.
another
trying to do
technically
it again.
like you could consider that an attempt to bring back Bionicle, but then they
Mm.
actually did bring back Bionicle, and it just didn't sell. They got through maybe like two waves, and it didn't sell
Can't
enough.
believe I missed it. I've been being recommended so many Bionicle lore videos on YouTube recently.
It's really hilariously in depth for what it is.
Yeah. All right, well that's the Gundam train done with. We like Gundam games. We
Um,
like big stompy robots.
I mean,
There's
who
something I
doesn't,
love about
right?
them. I want to beat the pieces off of someone.
I'll go. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit,
Go for it.
and I'm gonna go for a PvP game that I have been playing all freaking year. Let's
Mm.
talk about the finals, man.
Oh yeah.
Man,
This game is
could
sick.
you bring in some hard drugs into this conversation? Why?
It's literal heroin.
So here's the thing. Technically, it came out in 2023, but it was shadow dropped at the Game Awards, which is like mid to late December. So I'm gonna say that it's
Yeah, we also
technically
I
a
think we added it
2024.
to some lists last year, but only very briefly because it had only been out for a little while. So
But
Yeah,
we keep playing
I
it.
think
By God.
spiritually to me it's a 2024 video game because I don't really think it came into its own until kind of later on in the year. But a bunch of ex Dice developers, apparently all the good ones. um,
Mm,
it's just so unique, and there's nothing else like it. One of my favorite things is when the game first came out, a lot of people trying to describe it by comparing it to other games, and no
yeah,
one could do it properly because you can't. It's just its own weird thing.
it
Like so,
actually
like
got unique game modes.
Yeah,
It has even the game modes that are inspired by regular things, like basically a tug of war payload mode. Has its own twists in that like your payload is moving through buildings and just breaking them apart as it's going.
yeah,
I
and like
So much
quite
love a
fun.
game with destructible environments in it, and
and
to the
like
level that these are.
Oh yeah, and quick for anyone watching who hasn't heard of the finals before, PvP shooter. Depending on the mode, sometimes it's three teams of three, sometimes it's two teams of five, and there's objectives. Sometimes you have to bring like cash to a like a little vault and protect your money, that sort of thing. But the big claim to fame is how destructible everything is. Almost
Yeah.
every single building in the game that isn't foundational can just be completely flattened in the most beautiful way possible.
And even if
And
they're
we're not,
foundational, you can probably destroy the top half.
That's
yeah,
why my
and it's not like
favorite weapon's
the
the rocket
building
launcher.
the building shakes and then the walls just kind of disappear and then it kind of crumples in like a canned anime. No. This is mostly server based, full on physics.
You'll be
Yeah.
coughing
Like,
up drywall in
literally
real
the
life.
ceiling, the roof of one building becomes the floor sometimes. if that's how you want to go.
It's fun because they like play into this with all the class design stuff of
Yeah.
like the heavy has
Oh my
tons
God.
of movement, or not movement, but tons of like environment affecting things. So you can use like a sledgehammer to break through walls. You have a rocket
The
launcher which you use to smash things. It's great.
The
Sledgehammers.
only thing more satisfying than collapsing a building by yourself with a rocket launcher is being inside said collapsing building and finding a way out
I was gonna
But
say,
also very
how
cool.
often
while it goes down around you.
have all of us probably been like shooting from the top of a building when suddenly it's like, the top of
No
this
more
building
building.
is in
Why am I
encroaching
getting
the
lower?
ground very quickly.
The angle here
I'm not-
doesn't
I'm
feel
not-
flat anymore.
Yeah. Well, and what's great is that the game can be absolutely batshit insane. Tons of explosions and walls going everywhere and people running all over the place. But there is this cool level of strategy that you can apply to it if you want to. I have seen some absolutely dastardly plays by just the most like big brained players I have ever seen. People
Burning the
doing
drop
cool
box
things
and
like
flaming gas.
yeah, or people doing cool things like I think they showed this off in like a seasonal trailer or something. But basically, people put mines above where the cash out is, and then
Yep.
they use a tool which basically allows you to temporarily take out a bit of wall, and then they just drop the mines on top of the people in the floor below them, and then cover up the ceiling again. So it just activates all the mines, and they act like a bomb basically. It's
With the number
so
of gadgets there are,
cool.
it's crazy how creative. Like with the oh my gosh, so many different gadget combinations that will lead to me absolutely raging
And I'll
because
say
I
this
didn't think
too.
about that and was killed by it so easily.
You know
Exactly.
how often I have used the gas mine, one of my favorite things, and immediately realized that it was a major detriment to everyone else in the Discord call, and I was just sitting there like, I can't say that was me. That would, oh god, that was me.
Oh no!
Even now we know.
And I'll say this too, it's free to play, so it has like the battle pass and it's got microtransactions. I do have to say, it's also, I would say for the most part, a pretty fair kind of free to play system. Like obviously they want you to spend money on skins and stuff like that, but you can kind of passively earn that in-game currency without even having to buy anything. So over time you slowly build up enough currency in order to buy things. It does take a while, but I would say in terms of like free to play, live servicey stuff, I would say it's not nearly as bad as it could have been.
I think
Which
there's
is
some
nice
genuinely
cherry
like
on top.
pretty decent, cool looking stuff in the free like career pass that you
Yeah,
go through.
well, and the cool thing too is even with the paid stuff, like the whole kind of setup for the game is that it's like a VR kind of game show type thing. So they can really get wacky and weird with cosmetics. Like they just released a cosmetic pack where you get to dress up as Sasquatch, basically. Or like Bigfoot, and they even have a little victory pose that's like the classic like
Oh my
pose when you
god.
walk. It's great.
That's pretty great.
Or they have a weapon pack. I think it was called the Perfect Find, where it's all they have a bunch of skins for weapons that look like, oh, you pick up a stick in the woods when you're a kid and it looks like a gun or it looks like a sword or something like that. And it never breaks the art style. Because that's the problem that you get with a lot of these kind of free to play games to try and push skins, where it tends to after a while they just get too insane and it kind of breaks whatever kind of
You're
aesthetic or
talking
art.
about Call of
But it's
Duty.
like insane and kooky
I'm
and
not pointing
charming
fingers, but it happens.
from
But I feel
but
like
it's
with
insane and
this,
kooky and charming from the get-go, right?
but I feel like
Because like
with this, yeah, you get to go as crazy as you want with it because it's all of like a virtual game show anyway. So who cares?
one of their first costumes, like full body costumes, was just like a little green alien. I think
Yeah,
was
I
the
mean, because it was the launch of the Las Vegas map, so they wanted to do a whole like alien theme. Or there's a they have the Lewis gun, which if you've never seen it, it's a World War One weapon where it has like a giant like
oh
circular mag on top that spins, and there's a skin that turns the top magazine into a roulette wheel that's constantly spinning. Like just
Very fun.
very fun. Or a submachine gun where it looks like a little retro games console and you load it with like game cartridges. Just like
oh that's fun.
stupid weird shit that's a lot of fun and very creative as well.
For sure. All right, let's move on to our next thing here. I can bring us over for a moment to something that I think is a little bit of an interesting game that we didn't talk about much last year, which is a thing that a bunch of us were excited about. Towerborn. This is a game that we all like saw in a couple of showcases.
Oh.
I think I'm the only
Yeah.
one that actively played it a little bit, but I think it's a cool like multiplayer Castle Crashers-y
Mhm.
action game.
Oh.
With a lot more of like a long tail in terms of progression and whatnot. There's some monetization stuff that I'm not sure about. Like it's not particularly microtransaction-y or anything like that, but there's like a thing where at the start of early access there were like tiered founders packs. You could get like silver and gold, and I think you can still get those. But it was basically you got one of those, and you would every month you logged in during early access, you'd get a new cosmetic, but you couldn't get the old ones. So it was just like a weird kind of FOMO-y system. They've replaced that now in that it's just if you buy the founders pack, you get all the stuff that was part of it. So it's much more friendly. It's got really cool character creator. It's just an interesting game that like almost reminds me of games like Maple Story and L Sword, if those words mean anything to anyone here.
Wow,
I've heard of
Ryan,
Maple Story
you
before.
said one of my sleeper agent phrases.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. That's
Wow.
why I brought it up.
Bro is activated now.
Yeah, it's just an interesting game. It's not on my list for anything because it's still very early access. But I think it's an interesting project so far, and it's from the Banner Saga devs. So
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing is that you have this kind of like choice heavy kind of tactical like tactics RPG series with this beautiful rotoscoped art style. And now you have this. So I'm it's an interesting kind
it's
of
a big jump. Yeah, a very different game.
Yeah. But
I do
that's
still
also
really like the art style, though.
That's also ex-BioWare developers, or at least it was originally, I think. A lot of ex-BioWare devs all over the place. Interesting.
There's a lot of those guys floating around in the
Yeah, what are
industry
they
right
floating
now.
to?
for some reason.
Unfortunately, I'm hearing that there may be more.
Oh,
Let's see.
All right. Well, on that happy note, who's got another game to talk about?
Wait a minute. I feel like that actually transitions us perfectly into Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which we haven't really talked about that much.
Yeah, because we were going to do a whole episode on it. Why?
Yeah, well, you know, listen. The reason the video has not materialized is neither here nor there. I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it'd be a good time to talk about it now. It did release last year, so it counts.
Technically in there.
Yeah, what a I'm not gonna say it's about the game, but just about the discourse surrounding the game. What a mess.
Yeah, real
uncomfortable, frustrating fucking mess.
Yeah.
Really
I
strange
think there's
set of situations.
This is one of those cases where, like, I think there's some legitimate critique.
Definitely.
From what I've seen and what I've played, I don't have a ton wrong with it, but I think there's some legitimate critique, but it's hard to get to real critique because you have to wade through.
Because the problem
find
is,
a
like,
lot of content creators
basically.
I just did not care about at all.
There's a lot of things in Veilguard where I have like certain issues with the writing, and the aesthetic is not what I would have gone for. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do, but I do think there's like an issue with the character designs being a little bit too cartoony in a way. Like they feel live servicey to me. Like they feel like they were meant to be factions that you would pick in a live service game, right?
Well, it is interesting how many of the because it was at one time some sort of weird live servicey kind of looter type thing, and then it went through a lot of different restarts during development. But you can feel that in a lot of different parts of the game. Like you said, character design is one thing. The big thing where I feel it is combat abilities, because people start doing some absolutely buck wild like spins and all sorts of crazy like flashy spells and stuff. And if you know anything about the Dragon Age universe, being able to wield magic is a pretty big deal. And then you have people that are warriors or rogues that are just doing the most insane things, and so it kind of clashes with the world a lot. as well. And it's probably just a holdover from whatever live service thing that they had, and they just had to work with what they had, you know?
Well, it's like a setting where magic is a really big deal. Like being able to do magic is heavily controlled and whatnot, but even the warrior, and I'm not saying this is like a thing that I'm personally having a problem with, but I do think this is an argument that has some legs. Like if you're a warrior character, you get abilities like you have a spectral shield that you throw constantly by charging it, which is just like a weird thing that is kind of anachronistic with what the game is actually showing you.
Well, and imagine how, because here's the thing, I think it becomes a bigger issue if you play as a dwarf in the game, because dwarves cannot use magic. Now, there is a dwarf that can use magic, and the game kind of gets into that a little bit, but that's a special edge case.
Yeah, but
that's also an edge case. That's a plot line from Inquisition.
That has its own plot line. So imagine you're, a warrior or a rogue dwarf, and you're just essentially casting spells. It's bizarre. It's very strange.
Looks very strange.
Yeah. But I do think, and my biggest issues with the game is writing. I think the pacing is all over the place, and very, very slow at parts, which is one of the reasons I haven't finished it yet, is because I put it down for a bit. I will say, after a pretty good section of the game, but then it slows down again. I just think the biggest thing is there's just a lot of inconsistency everywhere, whether it's with writing, gameplay, variety.
It's one of those games that you can tell had a weird development, right?
Yeah. I will say, I mean, we don't know the specifics of the development for the game. It sounds like hell. Whatever they went through, it sounded like hell. And I have to say, considering how long this took to make and how many restarts this had during development, I'm surprised it's not more of a mess. Because it is a fun game to play. Like, as distracting as the abilities are from a lore standpoint, a lot of them are really fun. I've been playing Rogue, and there's a lot of fun Rogue stuff that you can do. Like, there's a whole tree where you can set up different traps and
the
like,
actual
turrets.
Classes are really enjoyable to play. They just don't really feel like the same as the rest of Dragon Age. Like, they feel like their own kind of deal. I think for me, it's also, I have finished the game. I've finished it fully. I want near 100% of it. I'm missing one achievement, I think, to get the 100%. And to me, it's like, I enjoyed that enough to do that and not feel like that was a problem at any point, but at the same time, I don't think there's a lot of replayability there. Like, I think maybe the story would turn out a little bit differently if I went with a character that was, like, really militaristic and, like, very, get the job done first. I think it would be a very different playthrough, but I don't necessarily think it would feel that different, if that makes sense.
I also think the choices that you make feel not nearly as impactful as other games, and there aren't as many of them that really kind of change the
because they have you make choices constantly, and they also do the thing where they like put a thing on the top left of the screen. It's like, hey, so and so remembers this decision. I feel like they should just stop doing that, because that's a thing for a very specific type of game. And in RPG, the assumption should generally always be that the choices you make matter, right? Even if they on the back end don't.
Which, how often has that happened in Veilguard?
I mean, it happens a lot. It's like, it throws up a thing on the side. It's like, oh, you can, like, Lucanus has a deal with coffee, and he'll ask you what your favorite drink is at one point. And then he'll remember that favorite drink for later. And then the game will tell you that Lucanus remembers your favorite drink when that scene happens. And then if he makes you coffee later, it'll pop up again that, like, Lucanus remembered your favorite drink. I'm like, that's unnecessary.
Well, thanks for like pulling back the curtain and doing the eyebrows, like, huh? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? You get it?
It just removes the subtlety from the writing, because I think otherwise it's a cool thing, but it's a cool thing when I discover it and remember it, not when it's just shown to me as being the case.
I think it sucks that it seems like BioWare is not doing great at the moment, because I really want to see what this team can do with a project that wasn't on fire for so long. Because again, I think for a project that's been through as much development like hell as this has, I think they pulled through with a pretty fun action RPG, even if it's not a very good Dragon Age game. But I want to see what they can do when they have focused development, and they can just work on something beginning to end without all of this nonsense.
Because yeah, where I'm at is like I'm sitting at, I think it's probably a pretty solid 7.5 to 8 is probably where I would rank this game, where I'd giving the score. But I think I think they could do much better.
Yeah.
For me, it's they made a game that's like, it is a 7.5 to an 8 video game, but it is not an 8 in terms of a Dragon Age game. Like it's
not great for a Dragon Age game.
But then it gets complicated again because the actual Dragon Age plot lines that they address in the game are handled really well in a lot of ways, and handled really interestingly, and they close out a lot of the like glaring plot holes from other games, or like leftover plot hooks that had never really been answered. Tons of those get addressed in Veilguard, and they're addressed well. And I wish that part of the game had been more of the focus, because I think those things are handled in a much more interesting way than the rest of it. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Veilguard, because Wyatt, as soon as you finish it, we could do an actual episode on it.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, interesting game. Let's go in the hard other direction with one that'll be a quick mention to cleanse our palate after Veilguard. I want to mention Ys 10 Nordics, which not a game that I own. It released a demo, and I played that entire demo. Well, I don't know if I played the entire demo because it's still letting me play. At this point, I don't know when it
3 or 4 hours so far?
Over 5.
Oh my god.
I've spent over 5 hours in that demo just playing the game, and it has not told me to stop, so I don't know what's happening.
Sweep, baby.
Hopefully all that progression carries over to
it does,
full
yes,
game.
It does.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
I absolutely intend to buy this game whenever it's on a sale, or I have the time to just go play it. But the reason I want to mention it here, and this isn't in my awards list because I don't own it. It's really weird to throw this up as an award for a game when I don't own the video game.
Hey, add a best demos section.
But Nordics has it's a super long demo, but for the PC version specifically, the port is handled by Durante, who's a very well-known PC like port handler that is known for like fixing a lot of the Dark Souls ports originally and creating the mods, as well as tons of Ys and Trails games. Really? They're responsible for all of those, and
that's pretty cool.
Super great person who has done all this work to get these games running. Implemented a full local co-op mode in the PC build that's only available.
That's wild.
Which Alex and I played a fair bit of. We played a couple, like an hour or two of this, and it's really fun. There's
really fun grappling hook techniques that you can do by grappling to your partner and things like that.
Because the whole
combat
game in single player is based on you switching between two characters that are like always tied together, basically. That's sort of the construct of the game, is that you find yourself like locked magically to another person, and you have to sort of solve this problem. Yes, it's basically Astral Chain, and you have to work with her to like figure out what's going on and solve a bunch of problems. But this like magic thing lets you kill things that other people can't kill that are invading. So the whole game's about like comboing and using dual attacks and like controlling both characters at once, essentially. And then playing the multiplayer just separates one of them out to be with the other character, and you're still like chained together and stuff. But it's really interesting to play that way because it doesn't play like anything else that I've played before.
It almost reminds me of Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, where you basically control two characters at the same time, but you have to switch between them for puzzles and traversal and stuff.
Yeah, that's not even mentioning the whole ship battles and pirate stuff in the game as well.
Oh yeah,
which is great. They have a ton of cool pirate stuff. It's not as advanced as I think someone looking for something like Black Flag would want, but it's advanced enough to give you the pirate fantasy pretty well.
It'll scratch your itch good enough.
It'll scratch your itch until Pirate Yakuza comes out.
Hey, we all love pirate stuff, right? Wyatt.
I mean, we do.
Anything
we just
pirate
wish there was
themed?
more good pirate stuff coming out. God damn it! I see what you're doing, Alex, and I'm ignoring you. I'm ignoring you.
Okay, Brett or Alex, you got something?
I go. I've been sitting listening to your blabbing for long enough, motherfucker.
Jesus
Continue with
Glad you're back,
Hater.
Yeah, of
So
course,
good to have
anytime.
him back.
I gotta continue with the little multiplayer stint that has been brought upon by the surprise East Nordics multiplayer thing that I did not know existed. Rabbit and Steel is a very good game
Hell
that
yeah.
came out middle of last year, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm sure it's all very good, but I just simply do not have 8 billion hours to put into Final Fantasy 14.
Just
I don't care
fucking do it,
how
Brett. Just do it.
I don't care how acclaimed it
Take
is
the
critically. I don't
plunge.
care how $20
It's completely
the
free.
fucking free thing. I don't like. I don't care. I don't care. I don't. I need to put my foot down and realize that when somebody is offering me something that will ruin my life on the street, I Dare told me to say no, so I'm going to say no. But luckily, there are simulation drugs to take the place of Final Fantasy 14, and one of them is Rabbit and Steel, because you can have the experience of doing a very well crafted, probably more frantic in certain ways, raid without any of the other stuff. All you need, I mean, you don't even really need friends. You can just do it by yourself if you're insane. But uh, difficulty wise and mechanics wise, you just have more time doing it with your friends. Um, but basically, the premise of the game is and I'm really going to this with a multiplayer perspective because I have no interest in playing this by myself because of the multiplayer stuff is just so fun. So I just only want to play it with people. Uh, so I just consider it a 100% multiplayer game, even though you can play it by yourself for some reason. It's a multiplayer roguelike where you are four maximum bunnies of different Final Fantasy classes, and you float around in a left to right shoot 'em up way, and you have your little abilities on cooldowns. And in typical bullet hell fashion, you have to dodge 8 million things and not get hit by any of them, or you die.
Oh, is it a one
Um,
life situation? So like one hit
Sometimes
point?
it is. They have the cool roguelike pickups where it's not just like a you need 2% movement speed. Wow. It's like a do 50% more damage with your
Ooh.
this attack, but you have like one hit point. Um
Ugh.
there's you can get rezzed by your teammates if they're alive, but it's on a timer, I think. It has been a very long time since I played this last, but it was really, really, really fun. And the reason that I haven't played it in a bit is because I think me and the group of people that I did it with had done everything that you can do at the current point in the game.
Oh my
Hey
At
I,
Brett,
god.
least
hey
I, I
enough
Brett,
gotta
to
I
say,
haven't
be.
played it in multiplayer. I got it sitting in my library.
Brett, I gotta
We
say,
need
I'm
to do a
Drag
stream
you
surprised.
of it.
back in.
You're talking about enjoying a roguelike right now.
That's because
I'm
it's good.
shocked. Wow.
Wow.
They do
Oh
exist. They exist. Trust
What is this
me.
Hades 2
Um,
slander?
my god.
Okay. Um, but yeah, it's a single dev aside from the music that is composed by a different person. But it's yeah, I don't know. It's always it will never not be nice to see a single dev project get this much attention because it's like it got released, and I mean the Final Fantasy 14 community is rabid and full of just the most ravenous creatures
Yep.
possible, so it just blew up immediately and was recommended
Well,
to
because if I remember what happened
presumably.
with this game is originally it was this person had made like a raid test game to like learn the mechanic of one of the boss fights in your browser
Hmm.
for 14, and that kind of expanded into this when they saw how
Yeah, I
much
was about
interest
to
there
ask
was.
what the link between this and 14 was. I was a little confused.
It
That
is
makes sense.
literally 14 raid mechanics, so it is
Okay.
Yeah.
entirely designed around Final Fantasy 14's set of mechanics. It has its own stuff too, but
Wow. Okay.
there's the like classes are analogous to 14 classes, stuff like that.
Interesting.
So we need to do a stream of this. It's been far too long in the making, but it
Yeah.
needs to happen. And yeah, if you somehow haven't picked it up yet and are interested, you should.
And
And
I'll say it's
there's
good in
going to
single
be a
player
DLC
too.
soon.
It is a good single player game as well. It's much less difficult in single player because there's no communication involved. It's
Yeah, that
just a
makes
lot more
sense.
of like, if you understand what's going on, you will win, basically. But it's kind of, you don't have the
I'm
multiplayer
doomed.
difficulty level going in there. And yeah, I really like it. I think the main reason I haven't played more is that I do play Final Fantasy 14. And
Yeah.
Rabbit and Steel, as good as the music is, does not have the killer jams that Masayoshi
But it-
Soken puts out.
Does Rabbit and Steel
It
have
does have the
vocals in
Frog
some of
Zone
the
theme.
music?
It does have the
does.
Frog Zone theme.
It does.
There's some good stuff in there, but Soken goes so hard on every single song in 14 that I will do every 14 raid forever solely to hear the music.
Listen to music again.
This is one of the only games that I have never replaced the music with or turned off. Yeah. But yeah, Rabbit and Steel is very good. Right? Anyone else got a game they want to mention?
Yeah, I'll go. I feel like this game was like forgotten the second it came out, and it makes me really, really sad. Because I really had a fun time with Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. I have not finished it yet. I am a good, I want to say 15 hours in, something like that, but I've put quite a bit into this game, and I'm not entirely surprised, because it is kind of rough around the edges in a lot of ways, but I think um this is one of those games where like the story really kind of drags you through some of the kind of rougher gameplay aspects of the game. And not even that they're that bad, but for me, you can get by, a game can get by with like either basic or rougher gameplay if you have a really good story. And for me, I love these two main characters. I love this world. The world building for this is so interesting. Um, just the way that they describe ghosts and spirits is fascinating, because you're interacting with people who have died and you're talking to their spirits, but the way that the game kind of describes it is that it's an like a amalgamation of memory and emotion, but it's not actually the person's like soul,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like near indistinguishable, so it kind of creates this question of like, what am I talking to exactly? Or you have moments where there's a giant boss fight essentially, where you're fighting kind of like a rat king of spirits that are all bonded by like hatred and vengeance, basically.
Oh.
It's just super cool concepts for spirits. um but it's an interesting dynamic between two characters, because this is kind of follows along that like Sony game or God of War style structure, right? You have two characters. They're on this journey. It's a very character focused story, but you have also kind of like an action adventure game with some light sprinklings of RPG stuff in there. It's very much in like the realm of God of War. Um, but I just thought the dynamic between the characters were interesting, because one of them is dead and her spirit's following you, and this kind of question that's being asked throughout the game is like, hey, your ultimate goal is to get back to your partner's body, and one of the questions that's asked is like, hey, are you gonna enact this darker ritual to bring her back, or are you gonna let her move on to the
Yeah.
spirit realm?
It also does
so
the thing I
fascinating.
really liked about Banishers too, is that it does a better job compared to like Vampire or other games that this is Don't Nod, right?
Yeah.
Well, Don't Nod.
In
Make sure it was
Vampire,
actually
you
them,
want to
not
get the
Deck
bad ending
13,
because
one
the
of other
bad
ones.
ending is cool.
Vampire, the bad
The
ending
bad
is the
ending
best
is-
ending.
Yeah.
Legitimately, I think the other endings are fine, but Vampire's bad ending is so like appropriate for a vampire story. It's really cool. But I think Banishers, because I feel like most people when they're going through a game like this tend to make decisions that they would probably make or something along those lines. They tend to lean pretty good, right? Like
Mhm.
I think when presented with a truly just this is an evil option, the people that pick that are picking it because it's funny, right, or something like that. And I think that type of gamer is probably not playing Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. And I think that has led to Don't Nod in the past making games where there's a bunch of decisions that feel really extraneous, because they're so like cartoonishly bad that you would never do them. But I think Banishers, from what I was playing, like makes it a much more difficult moral choice a lot of the time, because you're like, sometimes killing this person might be the right option, like the quote unquote good thing to do.
It would be a massive mercy to end everything that you're going through right now.
Yeah.
The best kind of parallel to that is the decisions that you make in Witcher 3, for example. I think is kind of in the ballpark.
Feels more a lot more akin to that.
There's so much gray area in all the choices that you're making. It's definitely not like a Paragon or Renegade, like very.
But it's also colored by the whole time,
choice.
like you have to choose if you trust this version of your partner that's like a ghost creature, and whether or not
before, like, is a thing that isn't their actual soul.
Well, you just don't know, right? Like nobody knows, because you can't prove it one way or the other. So a big portion of this game, and like this is a thing that the ghost version of this character talks about. Like she mentions this when you run into her ghost, is like, I don't know what has happened truly. Like if we're following the book, you should you should banish me right now, right? And like not allow that to happen. But at the same time, there's like some lore that they have that if you banish a ghost, the soul can't go to rest. So there's some combination of that where it's like that he doesn't want to banish, because if he banishes her, she doesn't get to rest. But so the other option is to like let them go to rest themselves, but that has a risk of them becoming a worse problem if they want to stick around. And so you have to like decide if you trust this ghost enough to let that happen, and risk a worse thing happening, or if you want to go the like darker route and kill a lot of real alive people to get this energy to put the ghost into the body, right? So
the more we talk about this, the more I want to play it.
It's a really interesting
It sounds like just my type of fun moral dilemma. And
yeah, the biggest thing is the combat's jank. The combat's a little jank.
Really jank. There's never a moment where you hit. There's never a moment where you hit like a flow with it. It just feels very clunky, which is really
it's one of those games that I would probably turn to easy and like largely ignore that the combat exists.
If only Flintlock was like this.
I mean, I like that it's there because I have ADHD monkey brain and I have to hit things with a sword.
Yeah.
And I think the foundation for it is fine. I mean, it feels very God of War, just really clunky.
It just doesn't feel as satisfying to hit anything as God of War does, right?
No, well, that's the main problem. I would have way less of an issue with combat if I don't know what their decision making was here, right? But you're fighting spirits for the most part, right? And so if you're fighting them with a sword or later on a musket, right? Like what sound do you make to hit a ghost with a steel blade, right? And there's solutions.
It's just like a floosh. It's like a little pull.
So there's like no.
Yeah, that doesn't sound satisfying.
Impact at all, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
They do have this cool mechanic where during combat you're fighting as Red, the main character, but you can also switch to Antea, the ghost partner, and she has her own little combos. And there's combos that you can use that's hitting sometimes with Red's sword and then switching to Antea for some like ghost punching, basically. And that stuff's kind of fun.
How does ghost on ghost violence sound? That's got to be at least a bit better, right?
It's better, but it's still not great, unfortunately. But no, I just narratively and a lot of the decisions that you make really, for me, have been pulling me through the kind of mediocre combat, because it's just such an interesting world that I desperately want to know more about, and they just have cool little details that they didn't have to do, but it's really interesting where there's vendors all over the game where you can sell stuff, where you can buy gear or whatever. But sometimes those vendors are or I think with every vendor they're tied up with some sort of quest that you can do. where a lot of quests in the game are about like, hey, someone's haunted by a spirit. You have to figure out the details of the spirit and what's anchoring them to this world and the conflict that they have that's kind of keeping them in our realm. And then afterwards, you have to make a decision about like, do I kill the person who's being haunted to let the ghost free? Do you like banish it? Do you ascend the ghost? You have to make that decision afterwards. But sometimes vendors are tied up in these quests, and depending on if you favor the vendor or not, they'll give you really nice discounts or like stuff that they don't normally sell to other people and stuff. Just like completely unnecessary, but like it was cool
It
that they
ties the
thought of
whole
it.
thing together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I hope this game gets a second a reappraisal at some point, because I think there's a lot of people that would really be into this, but either they haven't heard of it or they just heard middling things about it. So I
Yeah,
hope
it
at some
launched
point
in
we get
between a
there.
bunch of other stuff as well, so it was a little in the middle.
Yeah. And I think it had some tech issues at launch too. So it unfortunate, but I really do hope this finds more of an audience in the future, because I think it's actually quite good for what it is.
Yeah. All right, who's got another game they want to talk about?
I have something that could be considered a 2-for-1, because I did just immediately buy both games that this
Love it.
developer made. But the first and the main one, Tactical Breach Wizards. I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a later addition to the list. But oh, it is the first and hopefully not the only like tactical positioning uh fantasy military shooter that I have, you know, played and actually enjoyed for once. I usually am not a fan of, at the least, or have tried and uh, it's proven like I could not get into the game at all that are more tactical positioning games like XCOM and things like that. But this
I
one,
think it's because Tactical Breach Wizards almost plays more like a puzzle in a way.
yeah,
Like it's
absolutely.
really designed around you doing very specific amounts of damage and movement with each thing. So
Yeah,
it's
and
almost like
there's
more like chess than a more traditional tactical game.
yeah, and there's this whole rewind mechanic that makes it a lot more forgiving with things. That it's that the low poly aesthetic, the low poly art style, the aesthetic of modern military mixed with like wizardry. This guy has a staff in a with a tactical stock and shoulder pad attached to them.
Beautiful.
It's very cool.
And
I
like a
love that.
desert camo wizard hat with a walkie-talkie strapped to it and a headset.
Oh, that's funny.
It's
I
the
love
art
that.
style for this and the visual designs are so astoundingly fun to look at. And I think that's definitely what got me through the door, and with how not necessarily forgiving, because there is like you said, there is it's everything is designed with a specific amount of damage. There's not too many different solutions to each puzzle, but you can find them out and get through them, and they are very it's really satisfying too, especially with the amount of environmental interactions and just spells. It's oh god, it's so fun. I'd recommend trying it. And the second game from these people that I immediately picked up was Gunpoint, which is a 2D sort of like little pixel art break-in sim game, break-in puzzle game, where you're this grizzled uh, PI who's taking on contracts and solving cases and things, and there's these little pixel art cutouts of buildings that you can go in and do puzzles to avoid guards and evade security systems and things like that. And oh, it's good. It's these devs uh, are fantastic at the puzzles that they make.
Yeah, that's very good.
That's
I know Gunpoint got a ton of critical acclaim when it first came out, and Tactical Breach Wizards had a lot of acknowledgement as well. All right, I've got another one to run with because I think Brett will have something ready, which means I have to get him ready by mentioning another big stompy robot game, which is Megaton Musashi W Wired. It's a bit of a mouthful.
It was about time.
This is a game that released out of nowhere. It's like a collection of a bunch of games that released in Japan, but not the West. One of which was like a gacha game, one of which is an actual regular game, and then a third like ultimate collection or something. There was an anime. There's a ton of weird stuff where like this was almost like a franchise in Japan that just never really caught on over here. But we got Megaton Musashi W, which is the collection, basically combined into a single full way through game. It is really fun. It's like a very hack and slashy version of Gundam Breaker, a little bit less focus on customization and more focus on just action stuff. It's a little bit simpler in the action, but there's tons of other things you can do. There's tons of like really cool special abilities that you get. And you play through like the story of multiple pilots in this stranded like human colony after the world's been turned into a donut, basically.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
someone shot space cannons at Earth and it turned it into a donut, and now humans are almost dead. And there's like a town where everything, basically a bunch of the survivors have a fake town where they raise people in, and that's sort of the setup here. Because it's one of the few safe places left from this like alien attack, and you play as some of the pilots that get like taken from, of course, the high school here, and play through
We
their
gotta
stories.
indoctrinate the children.
Look, you got to indoctrinate the children when the rest of the planet's gone. And yeah, it's just a really fun like classic anime super robot show, but it's handled way better in video game form than I ever thought you could. Because like the this also has a huge side scroller portion where you're just playing the pilots on the ground, like walking around the town that you're in and going to different things, like learning about other pilots, doing little social interactions and stuff. It's very cool, and it's you like customize mechs for everyone in the loadout, and it's not like everyone gets the same thing. It's like sometimes people you have to have Pacific Rim style 2 pilots for certain suits, so you have like different slots for the 2 pilot suit. You have one for like the experimental single pilot suit with like a genetically modified pilot and all this other stuff that happens. So there's like story stuff around all of this. It's really interesting. And yeah, it's a pretty cheap game. It goes on sale all the time. It's got a ton of crossovers with some of the older Super Robot franchises like Gao Gaigar and was it? I'm forgetting the name of it.
Mazinger is there, I think.
Mazinger,
Get a
yes,
Robo
that's
is
it.
the other one.
Get a Robo. So tons of cool crossover stuff, and just lots of fun things in general. It's one that really flew under the radar. Good Switch port as well. Also cross save,
Get a lot of
which
those.
we love to see.
Don't get a lot of those these days.
Hopefully with the Switch 2 that'll get better.
Hopefully that changes.
Brett, I
We'll see,
teed it
right?
up for you with big stompy robots.
You set me up for something with which I don't really have a perfect response, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So
Yeah,
it's
great.
not robots, it's planes, which is my other,
Perfect.
my other tick. Um, so this literally I knew nothing about this dev. I still, to be honest, I don't know anything about them. I just saw like how could there be this cool low poly super fast paced rail shooter in space and nobody told me about it. And I'd found out about it like the day after it came out and I was like, well shit, this looks like fun. And it is. It's called Rogue Flight. Um it's
I've had my eye on
aimed
that game for a
towards
while, but haven't picked it up yet. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying
it's
it.
yeah, it's really cool. It was really I think there are certain games where you try to play with like some sort of strategy, some sort of thing in mind that they may be intending for you to do. Like, oh, I got to think about when best to use them. No, you just need to press all the buttons at once, and you just need to hold all of them down because that is the only way that you do enough damage to get past the boss fights in one piece. Because this plays like a classic shoot 'em up in that if you die, it doesn't matter what level you're on. You're going right back to the start of the tutorial every
Oh, it's an
single time.
arcade game.
Yes. Um,
Oh,
and some of the bosses, especially on a first attempt, are really like, holy shit, there's so much stuff going on. They're like doing, because they're, of course, they're 9 million times bigger than you are, so they're like doing maneuvers that kind of like press you into like the lava below, and you have to like fly into the right part, or like like the whole sections of the screen will be covered by a giant laser beam and shit. Um, and there's also like a hilarious amount of customization, and I don't even really know the requirements for unlocking them, because I feel like if you just like get far enough, you just get 40 different kinds of like stabilizers and like different, and they really like, they have effects, like they make the bar fill up more or less green for different statistics, but the most important thing is that they look different and very cool. So just the fact that you can like give yourself kind of like a little bit of a pseudo TIE fighter wing setup, or just like have like a bunch of like big rail guns and stuff, they don't really change the gameplay too much, but when you're doing some of the harder stuff, those little differences really do help a lot. Um, and the coolest thing that sets this apart from other rail shooters, um, is that, of course, you can drift.
Yeah,
In
you can drift the
That
planes.
you can drift.
Yes, of course, you can drift the planes.
Hell yeah.
Which doing that basically functions as like a parry in like a Souls game or something.
Oh,
If you do it at the right time, you dodge stuff, of course, but it slows down time, and depending on the direction that you're drifting in, like the whole entire screen will get covered by like a big like air slash that goes off into the distance where it was pointed. So you can just like, and it does damage to enemies, missiles, like all the
that's
anything that you could
sick.
possibly hit. So if you get the timing and placement down right, you can just like constantly like drift back and forth like a psychopath and just spin over and over. And it has like a little like classic like Wolfenstein little camera for your pilot in the bottom right. You just see her just like flying back and forth trying to keep up with all the insane
Mhm.
maneuvers that you're doing. Um, but it's really cool. This is a very fun game. It is it was hard for me until I just got that you just need to turn your brain off and hold all the buttons at once. But there are multiple endings, and I've gotten all of them except for the last one, I think. But there's
Very
some
cool.
weird shit going on with the story. So I don't know. I don't know what happens yet, but it seems pretty weird.
Why, that's wacky.
It's
That's
quite
very good.
wacky.
Yeah, I'm excited to try this at some point.
It's very fun.
All right, Alex's and Alex's. Either of you got a game to talk about?
Oh, I just won.
I have not just went.
It's just because
So.
Wyatt and I have combo gone a couple of times, so I'm trying to let us speak a little bit
Oh,
less,
yeah.
and you two speak a little bit more. If you want to.
Yeah.
Well, I can pick one. This one we'll probably talk about more in the future because it's one of our Game Pass games, but I wanted to mention it. Aliens Dark Descent actually came out in summer of 2023, but its release, despite being a pretty big Alien fan, totally passed me by. I think since some of the Alien games were such a big flop, and then other ones so well known, I think that maybe people just weren't watching for this one. Maybe it just passed me by, but
The slightly more niche genre too, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was what I was gonna say. Weird. Initially, it seems like a weird pick for an Aliens game.
yeah, I don't know if people have played it for the podcast yet, but I guess we can talk about that on its respective episode. But I find the gameplay to be really, really unique. I've never quite played anything like it, and I think it actually really fits really well.
Absolutely.
For what it's going for, at least. It's a bit more of a like Aliens take where there's a lot of aliens and you're going to be killing them. But there is still somewhat of like a stealth segment. They are still quite lethal at times. I mean, you tear through. There's times where I have like barely made it out of a level with like one guy alive, limping to the finish. So, I don't know. It's a lot of fun. It like I said, it just really came across as a really unique and really good way of representing this that I wouldn't have thought of. It's kind of an RTS, though would
Oh
really
no.
I would really hesitate to call it that. It's more just like a top-down tactical. You have like one squad that you control, almost like one character.
It
And
feels
go
like
ahead.
I've never played a strategy game that almost feels like a survival horror game. Like it is right on that line. Because
Yeah,
if you're in a mission, you're also looking for ammo, you're looking for health, you're looking for
hmm
tech that allows you to do things like setting up sensors or like welding doors shut, which is very aliens. So like it like straddles that line of like squad real-time tactics and like survival horror because you can also use your flashlight to try and find enemies, and they use the motion tracker really well, just like from the movies as well. It's got the same sound design to it and everything.
yeah. It
Scary, genuinely.
I think
Oh
that it's
boy.
it can be really satisfying too when you like, you weld the doors right in the right way and you set up some turrets in the right way and everything. And you've prepared, a wave of enemies is coming and you've prepared, and it
Yeah.
can be really satisfying when they funnel in there exactly how you wanted them to and you just mow down a wave of enemies or something.
Yeah, I'm excited to try this one. I haven't gotten
Yeah,
the time to
I'm,
try
I'm
it
sure
yet,
we'll have
but
more to talk about as a group. I don't want to spoil that whole discussion.
yeah. All right. Who else has got anything they want to talk about?
I go again.
Brett,
Nobody
do
said
it.
anything fast enough, so
Oh
I
no.
I didn't
stole it.
want to go.
You fool! Um,
Damn.
well, it's come time for me to talk about mouthwashing. It's been a
Perfect.
long time coming since I started talking about it in the Discord as if everybody knew what it was, and then when
Since
I
you started
realized that
washing your
nobody
mouth.
did, I had to explain. It's one of those things where my specific corner of the internet was like blowing up with attention for it, and I was like, "Oh, this game must be huge," and then no.
Oh.
um,
Brett, we don't
but
have the skills to keep up with PS1 wannabe games like you do. Okay, that's why you're here.
it's my purpose to fulfill. That's why you brought me back after all this time.
Exactly.
Um,
Our
but
PS1 correspondent.
it's interesting because while this game is one of the many that does the low poly, purposeful dithering sort of thing, it is probably one of the least clunky things that I've played at a recent date, to the point where I would like, if I was at home right now, I would give the controller to my mom and have her play it because I think she would love this game. This is a really cool kind of like newer current take on like the adventure game where it's like not like a point and click, it's not like a top down thing. It's like you can't really, there's the gameplay is going around like walking around the ship that you're on and talking to the crew, and it's like entirely linear. But the atmosphere and the storytelling and like even just the things that they manage to do when somebody tells you to go and grab a med kit from the cabinet on the hallway leading to the infirmary. Like, yeah, okay, you're just going and pressing X to pick it up and walking it back, but the things that happen during or instead of that are just so interesting that even though it's like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 hours long or something, it is so
Really?
impactful and so, yeah, it's really short. There
Wow.
are definitely reasons to go back and play it again to catch things that you may have missed, or there are collectible ID cards for all the crew members that you can go and collect if you like seeing the number 100 in your Steam app. Um,
3 digits.
but yeah, it's the premise is basically, without giving too much away, you're a part of a interplanetary space uh shipping company, and you've been ordered to make a really big important shipment to a place, and your ship is stranded in the middle of deep space with nobody coming to help you. And it turns out that what's this big important shipment that the captain's been hiding from all his crew. The captain, by the way, is completely incapacitated and is unconscious in the hospital bed. Uh, the shipment is like an incomprehensible amount of mouthwash, like boxes and boxes, like Area 51 at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it just pans out and keeps going, and
Oh
it's like a
my
huge matte
god.
painting. It's all boxes of mouthwash, and you get your descent into madness. You get the game looks like it's crashing on purpose, and then the screen
Oh my
tears to the
god.
next screen, and that's just the transition. And you go, okay, I guess I'm in the past now.
Oh my god.
It's really, really friggin' awesome. I mean, you can tell your game has won the popularity contest when your cast of various levels of horrifically evil characters is people are making gifs of them with like sparkle on, it's Thursday, be yourself, and with the sparkly pink text, and they have like
Oh my god.
bunnies jumping around them, and they're like
I've seen
like
so
killing
many of those
people.
on Tumblr.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Even if you are not into horror, even if you are not into the low poly PS1 fad, it doesn't matter. Like I said, I want my mom to play this game because the story is really good. It's so short, the gameplay is so simple, and it's so effective and well made and really, really, really freaky. Um, that's probably my highest recommended thing on the my little list, just because of how accessible it is, and I almost want to make something like it because of how like of course you can make games this simple where you just fucking hold the stick and it goes in that direction, and then you talk to a guy and he says something interesting, like duh, and it just works. It's incredible. So
Yeah,
that's my
this is
mouth
one
washing
that's
rant.
every time it gets mentioned, it moves further up my list to play.
It's so good. You could finish it in a night.
I know,
It's so
which
good.
means next time I have a spare night, it's probably going to be on that docket to just get out
Ryan,
of the
that means it
way.
has to be
Yes.
a night that isn't taken up by abiotic factor. And do those nights even exist anymore?
Look,
That's the problem. Because when those don't
we got
exist,
to
it's
finish
the
that game
fun
first.
ones.
Get through. Uh, yeah, that's very, very cool.
Cool.
All right, I think we have time for one more from everybody, and that'll be our list. So, Alex, you have a finger
I
up as
have
if you're
one
ready.
that yeah, I'm gonna raise my hand for the class.
Yep.
So one that I feel like I think we've definitely done at least one like full episode talking about this game before, but I'm gonna bring it up again. Because this also I'm struggling figuring out if this is even gonna make it onto the game of the year list for me. Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah.
Mm,
This is
Revisiting
an
that
interesting
thing.
one.
yeah.
That thing.
this
Yeah,
this
revisiting
creature.
that thing.
this thing. I don't.
It
Yeah, I don't
was
know how else to
it's a
describe it.
game because it's certainly interactable to some degree.
Oh, to
Oh,
a
it's
pretty
very
great degree.
interactable.
Yeah.
It's very interactable.
I don't know. I've had a lot of time to sit on Dragon's Dogma 2 now, and I think I overall like it, but I don't like it as much as the first game, which is a position I
It's
hate to be in for a sequel.
it's
Especially
some of
one
the
that's like big claim to being a sequel was that it was going to fix the problems of the first game,
And it really didn't.
but it kind of
may
created
be
more problems.
yeah. It look as far as the combat goes, I think this might be my favorite feeling combat of any game that I have played.
Dude, now you know why people are so rabid about Dragon's Dogma.
But I almost hate everything else about it.
Is for me, it's the thing that really kills me about this is they left the coolest part of the game till after the credits, and you have to do a
Yeah.
secret thing to unlock it, to the point where I was the
You have to
only
do a
one that I
secret
think
thing.
saw it. Granted, they set up for you in the narrative that the secret thing is a thing you're meant to do. They like tell you all about this link between you and the dragon, and they tell you what this blade does, and so you're meant to kind of figure it out over the course of the game.
And I know it's explained in the writing because like spoilery stuff that I'm not going to go into, but it's like, but the world just feels so dead. Too like before
Yeah.
that, there's
Yeah, that was some of the
nothing
problems
to
I had
do
with the
besides
first
have.
one.
Oh, because
There's almost
they
nothing
made
to do
so
besides
many
a few
claims.
choice quests and some amazing combat.
I mean, that is what the game is about. Like, I think going into Dragon's Dogma expecting it to be a Witcher-style RPG is just a bad conception to begin with. Like, that's never what... The game is more of a Monster Hunter-like in that it's about fighting
But it
big
also...
things.
But then the combat also gets not watered down, but it becomes so easy at a point when you just get to a certain level.
Well, it's not even that. So like, to me, the issues with the combat in Dragon's Dogma, and I don't want to get like super into it here because we talked about all this before, but the gist of it for me is that Dragon's Dogma 2 went from the 6 skills that you would have in Dragon's Dogma 1 to 4. It's also reduced further if you take the advanced class that lets you use 3 from any class. Like, and I think you just end up feeling way under... You don't have the options that you should have to make combat feel more interesting. Instead, you're kind of stuck doing your basic stuff most of the time and then just mixing in these few abilities. You can have a really good time. Like, I wound up with a really bustedly fun Wayfarer or Warfare or whatever it is build for the 3 skill class, but at the same time, like, I have more fun just playing Dragon's Dogma 1 and having more options that I like to use. It also hurts because Dragon's Dogma is a game that designs around things like having golems that are completely immune to magic, right? You have to go climb them and hit a thing, or you have to use an arrow or something. In Dragon's Dogma 1, that's not a problem because you can do that. Like, you typically, every class had 2 weapons, except for 1. And you could generally do elemental or regular damage regardless. So, like, Magic Archer in the first game also had daggers, so you could, like, climb and stab a thing.
That's right, and they split the thief into the archer and the thief in...
Yeah, which you can, like, kind of do in Dragon's Dogma 2, but it is not as satisfying. Your combat loop is just a lot simpler. I also think they did a real misstep with the enemies in Dragon's Dogma 2 because...
So much less variety.
Number-wise, it's about the same number of actual enemies, but a lot of the cooler bosses and, like, big creatures for Dragon's Dogma 2 are only used a single time, or only really start showing up more often after that post-game bit. So, like, there's a comparable number of them, it's just they don't really have as much stuff, and you're generally fighting, like, the dinky little goblins and wolves.
I think my biggest
I also say that because
issue-
you run into a lot of the same enemy in a row, I feel
Yeah,
like.
it's because they didn't really fill out the rest of the roster like Dragon's Dogma 1 tried to.
And that kind of leads me into what, because I didn't finish it, and after a while I kind of grew to really dislike it. I don't think I hate the game, but when I left, I was really not having fun. And I think the big issue for me is I'm completely fine with a game really limiting your fast travel from like place to place and really making you kind of walk through the world and learn its topography. Totally fine with that. You need to make that interesting, though. You need to make that traversal interesting, and to me, it just wasn't, because you're running into the same enemies in the same locations every time you trek back and forth between different towns, and you're just kind of running, and they limit your stamina, so you're like running, and then you're walking, and then you're running again, and then you're walking. There's no cool, fun way to get around. Like, you learn some shortcuts, which are nice, but they also like put tons of enemies in those shortcuts, so it almost feels like it takes the same amount of time, and then after a while you're just running past enemies and not fighting them, which I feel like is the last thing you want to do.
And then your pawns
An
and stuff
action RPG,
get occupied with
just-
fighting them and leave you alone.
Yeah, it just becomes a fucking slog, and that's what I left the game with a bad taste in my mouth, because I just felt like it got so bogged down in so much needless running around in a way that wasn't enjoyable. Like,
Yeah, you
for
do
something
get to
like
mitigate
Spider-Man,
that past a certain point, but it is annoying to deal with.
like, part of the reason, and I know this is a completely different game, but it kind of speaks to the point I'm talking about. Something like Spider-Man, you're always engaged because just getting around the world is so much
I mean, I think a better
fun.
comparison is something like Death Stranding, right? Where
Oh yeah,
the reason that Death Stranding is fun to play, just baseline, is because traversal has so many options and is very interesting. And it's a slow-paced game. It's a very slow-paced
Plus
game.
you're, like,
I'd say
traversal is constantly something went thunk. Constantly evolving in that game.
Yeah.
But I think that's a similar like pace of game to Dragon's Dogma 2, obviously without the huge combat part of Dragon's Dogma 2 and more infrequent combat stuff. But I think like comparably, that's a game that was going for a similar feeling and does it a lot better compared to Dragon's Dogma 2 because
sure.
it's a more fitting place for that to be. All right. It's a good Dragon's Dogma 2 discussion. Who else wants to take a jump in here?
I have 2 games on my list here, and I think I'm going to save Neva for the actual award show because there's a lot. I've talked about it before, so I don't want to repeat myself.
You do have it nominated for every category.
I
I think we'll have enough time to talk about it.
I am gonna go in and switch some of that, but so you know what? I'm gonna talk about one that Ryan and I can kind of tag team here because man, Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown has not gotten enough love this year.
Yeah.
And any chance that I get to talk about it, I feel like I am obligated to because this game is fucking
I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, I think
It's
it
so
is.
good.
It is up there next to like Ghost Song and Ori for me is like my favorite Metroidvania.
Ghost Song, that's right. Ooh,
Song was pretty fun.
It's
Tons
so,
of great stuff in Prince of Persia.
like first of all, let's just get this out of the way. One of the best Switch ports I have ever seen, especially
Rock solid
recently.
60 frames, and it looks gorgeous. Like,
Yeah, it's I don't
That's
know
incredible.
how they did it, but it looks great.
some magic.
Some of the most buttery smooth controls that I've played all year. It feels so good to play. The best way to describe it is that it feels like you're playing a slightly faster pace like Smash Brothers character. It just like it feels so good to control. And I feel like they also streamlined the Metroidvania structure in a way that I really like because it allows you it's more helpful in terms of like doesn't tell you exactly where to go, but I think it does a better job of like guiding you in the right direction so you're not just constantly running around all of the time. There's a cool feature where as you're building out the map, you can actually, if there's points of interest that you want to come back to because maybe you don't have the right ability for it yet, you can take a screenshot of it and then pin it to that exact point on the map. So if you're like, oh, I just got this new ability, where can I use it? You can go to all of your little screenshots and say, oh, I can probably use it here. And then you go back there and unlock a whole other
Oh,
area.
that's
So you don't have
cool.
to just remember
Very
where all
smooth.
these spots are. So cool.
You know what the
Oh,
biggest pain is? How much you want to bet that's never going to be used in anything ever again?
I hope it is because it's such a
It's such a good
cool.
It's
idea,
really
and it works
useful.
so
Like,
well.
could you just do it on your computer? Sure you can. But you should be able to do it in your game.
Doing the game.
I'll say this too. It's interesting that Ubisoft has had the year that it's had with so many financial issues, and with a few notable exceptions aside, I think they've actually released their most solid lineup of games in a while. Like this was really good. I'll even kind of stand in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora's corner. That game was a lot of fun. Um, I feel like Ryan and I are the last 2 people on Earth that actually like Star Wars Outlaws, but like I feel like
Like
there's
Star Wars
slate of
Outlaws
games
is a
this
crazy
year.
one because like to me that game was so much fun to go through compared to
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
thought. But yeah, Ubisoft did
Um,
some great stuff.
yeah, we have a whole episode on it.
Prince
You
of
should check
Persia.
it out. But Prince, yeah. It's just it feels like one of those games that's like it doesn't have frictionless design, but because it controls so well, it feels so effortless.
Great
You just
parries too.
oh,
Phenomenal
dude.
parry system.
Oh, that's
Oh,
what I like. That's what I like to hear.
and it has something that we're starting to see more of, which is great, which is customizable difficulty instead of just like, oh, difficulty like easy, medium, hard. It's like, no, you can control your parry window, your damage, your
Yeah.
like base health and that kind of thing,
It also uses the
which is
fact
great.
that it's 3D really well. This is a thing that always bothers me if
Mhm.
I see like a 3D Metroidvania that is just 3D for the sake of being 3D and
Yeah.
doesn't utilize it. Prince of Persia does like camera movements. It will actually move the camera around. You've
Oh,
got
that's
special
cool.
abilities that like pull the camera into like a third person thing for a second that then does this really
Another
cool
one for the
animation.
wish list.
Yeah,
Um,
really.
There's tons of cool boss fights that deal with like enemies either coming above or below you, but
yeah,
also from the background as well. A lot of
Oh,
fun.
oh,
it's
that's
just
fun.
it's such a fun game.
Yeah. I would say the low point is like the story. It's not even that it's that bad. It's just I feel like
It's a Metroidvania story. Like it takes it
I
back.
Okay, what are you
feel like
playing in Metroidvania for the story?
I understand, but I feel like there's the reason I say that is because there's actually a lot of really interesting lost potential there, because you're basically playing a group of gods that go in and try and save the Prince of Persia, the titular Prince of Persia. But the cool thing is everyone splits up, and because this temple is very based on it has a lot of magic based in time, everyone is spending different amounts of time in the temple at the same time. So
Ooh.
you're interacting with these people who were once your companions, but they've also either completely changed as characters or they've gone insane or something like that,
Oh
all at different
wow.
points. It's so cool, and it's such a wasted opportunity from a
Oh,
storytelling perspective, but whatever. It's really
that's
fun to
how,
play. It's really fun to play.
it sounds so cool. Now I'm upset that they don't do more with
I
it.
know. There's
Oh
so much
no.
potential. I know. It's fine. It's fine. It just could have been a lot cooler.
Yeah. Also, obligatorily, I got to shout out Star Wars Outlaws because you mentioned it. I don't have a lot more to say about that game. We've talked about it a bunch before, but
People need to. Oh my god.
there was
I feel
some
like that game's gonna
rancid
be
discourse
great
around
when
that
I
game.
play it in another year and it's had 1 million patches and is all any DLC is out and it's on
This
Steam
is
sale.
like
I'm gonna love it.
What's
this
the
is in the
likelihood of
same
there being
vein.
DLC for Outlaws?
It's
This is
getting
in the
some.
same vein as
Oh,
Veilguard,
sweet.
where I have hated the discourse around this game, where it's just like as someone who it's and we mentioned this in our video. This game is a bit of a dream game for me, so I really wanted it to be good. And even if it's not the best game ever, I think it does so many cool things that people just don't want to talk about because Ubisoft bad, and also main character can just punch a stormtrooper, and people have an issue with that because bare hand punching a stormtrooper, even though
Yeah,
that's
but
been
I mean,
in
like,
Star
But their
Wars
armor is made out of plastic. Their
forever.
head's gonna rock around in it. Their brain's gonna turn to mush. There, easy
Wyatt,
explanation.
Wyatt, you need to understand something. It's because you're too woke. Anyway, my boyfriend and I had a really fun time this year playing Silent Hill, the original for the PS1. But everybody's already made 4 million videos about it on YouTube, so I'm not going to talk about that.
Oh
And
my
at
god.
that the segue that was really funny did come at the cost of you saying anything else, Wyatt. So if you did want to, you can now. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it was
Um,
funny.
no, that was great.
Wow.
I'm glad we went on that little
Okay, okay.
detour. No, that was great.
So
That little journey.
the game I actually want to talk about is it's another old one, not coming out this year. You also mentioned design being frictionless, and I think that's really funny because this is the most friction-filled game on the PS2. God damn it, not counting the original Monster Hunter. And it's Breath
Yeah.
of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter. And I've
What?
mentioned this as a shout out before, but basically my relationship with Breath of Fire is that it's a classic Capcom JRPG series that they don't make anymore because they're riding on the RE engine money, and the little glumpy pixel art characters don't work um in there for whatever reason. But the first 4 games are pretty, I wouldn't say bog standard, but like what you would expect from uh SNES for the first 2, and original PlayStation for the third and fourth games, RPGs, and that they're like turn-based and you charge up your big dragon ability and then the big damage, and that's fun. But it is
That does sound
certainly
fun.
very standard. And, after a certain amount of times doing different variations of basically the same thing, if you're the people making it, you probably get bored, which is probably why they decided to switch it up so much for the fifth one. And your mind's going to be absolutely boggled to insanity, Wyatt, because this game is a game that every time you die, the story progresses with each death, almost like
Oh.
Hades for the PlayStation 2.
Sounds a lot like
which
Romancing
I was
Saga.
not expecting.
Burnout Revenge for the
It's yeah.
PS2.
I Here's the thing. It's all I knew is that it was different, and in typical human fashion, change is something that is always bad no matter what. And everybody that I ever heard talk about this game said it was really bad and it killed the franchise, and it was really hard and really annoying to play. Don't bother. They should bring back more like the first four instead. And I am going to put my foot down and say that I need more to be like this instead, because it was really cool to uh, strategically plan out every time that you're going to fuck up on
Ooh.
purpose, basically. The way that it's set up is that you have I mean, the D stands for dragon, but it's called the D counter, which is very funny.
Good.
And uh, at a certain point early on in the game story, that starts counting up every time you use your dragon ability. It'll go up a lot. Every time you use certain abilities in combat, it'll go up a little bit. And every single step that you take in the overworld and every single turn that takes place in combat makes it go up by a fraction of a percent. And when it hits 100,
What?
no matter what, the game ends. And if it hits 100
What?
before you get to the top of the dungeon that is the whole game, you get the bad ending. So you need to
What?
conserve
Oh my
your D
god.
counter before you reach 100% D, and bad things happen. And the
Whoa,
only
whoa,
way
whoa!
there's
Can
no
we
like
upload
item.
that kind of language?
Oh my god,
We
that's
better be able
ooh.
to.
I'm
Um,
kidding.
Oh, we're screwed now.
there are no items that lower your D counter. There's no
Nothing can make your D smaller?
no, the only thing that can make your D smaller is by going back in time to a previous save point by
Oh.
dying, and doing that. So this is, I feel like
Oh.
I have like my
Ah.
conspiracy board next to me right now. When you finish combat, you do get XP for all your characters, your three party members, but you also get like, you know how in like the Souls games you can just pick up like a soul of a forgotten soldier or something, and it doesn't give you the souls immediately, but you have an item that is worth like 8,000 souls in your inventory that you can squish in your hand like a big green grape and absorb them all. At
Yeah.
any time in the future, you can die, you don't use them because it's in your inventory until you pop it, and then now they function like normal souls. It gives you XP items like that. You can
Ooh, that's nice.
use them and
That's
store
fun.
them in your locker that will keep items between resets. And so the way that you get through the game intelligently is to just grind by reversing time and dying on purpose over and over again. So it really doesn't matter how crap you do, as long as you finish some battles and get XP over the multitude of attempts. And then, so the absolute crazy thing that you can do is get really far, struggling like crazy, stash all your items in the locker, and then blow up, and then you can redo the first like 5 hours of the game with like a bunch of like mid game stuff and gear that lets you just like obliterate the first few hours, and that like process keeps going through the entire rest of the game. And I found that so interesting and so weird, because it's not even like, yes, like it has the a lot of elements that roguelikes have, and especially the Hades stuff, where it's like you have to. I mean, just like dying and restarting is part of the story and stuff. But like that specific, like just planned disaster, basically, instead of just like dying only being a bad thing, is so interesting. Uh,
And taking the
and
Souls-esque XP system is really fun too, because I don't think I've seen anything else that does it like that.
Yeah, and even though it's a turn-based like strategy RPG, there's no like there's free movement on your turn as long as you have movement points. There's no like grid or anything, and it just takes place on the same area that you were in on the overworld, so you can like lay traps and stuff, like set mines, and it'll show you the radius it'll go off
Oh,
when combat finally happens. You can like throw meat into a corner, and all the enemies will like run over there and start eating
oh
it. So you
boy.
can just ignore them and go
Pretty
through.
great.
It's so in depth, and it's crazy that like something not even like oh they tried something and cool and weird, and it was like 60% done well because it's a PS2 game. So I can understand why it did get popular. Like no, they just did actually a really good job, and people just weren't ready yet. People weren't ready
Well,
until Hades came out, and now I feel like if they did a re-release, it would go over really well because now people are used to games being like that and being super well liked.
Brett, what
Uh,
can I say? You're just a new type.
It's ahead of its
I,
time.
I guess so. It's ahead of its time, and because it's ahead of its time, it retroactively made me want to play games that are, I mean, not like contemporaneous of our time. I don't know. That's like overcomplicating it. Games that are out like as of the last few years. I don't know
Yeah.
because a lot of games do that now because of Hades.
Solely because of Hades.
Well, you know what,
Pretty
Brett? You're
much.
welcome.
It's
You're
true.
welcome.
I'm glad somebody played Hades, got into that, they played Hades and they reset and they put Hades into their little locker and they were able to
And
open
that's
it
why
up
they're called
in
Hades likes.
2004.
Oh
Yes, of course.
God.
Okay. Who's still up that's got something they want to mention? That's true. I think it's Sister Alex.
I've got one, I think. I'm skipping over my one that's going to be my game of the year because I figure I'll talk about that bunch
Yeah.
next time. This was probably a quick shout out because I think we've all played it, or at least a lot of people have played it, and maybe you guys even did an episode about it before I picked up the game. I can't remember. But Helldivers 2, been playing that
Yeah.
again recently with the new enemy faction and like new weapons and stuff. It's a ton of fun. It's a great multiplayer game. A lot of fun cooperative shooter aspects, really funny. Even when things go wrong, it's kind of fun for them to go wrong
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you're doing it with friends and because your body flies 900 miles an hour into the sky
Yes.
I do
and takes
appreciate that
600
everything
bugs
that
with it.
kills you acts like like you being hit by a Skyrim giant.
Everything in that game
Flying.
has friendly fire, which sounds awful, but I think it's fun.
It's hilarious.
My own like backpack drone thing shot me in the head probably 4 times last night.
No.
Because I was moving and it was moving and
You're not preaching freedom enough. Bam.
This game is one of those like video game white whales for me, where in terms of like I desperately want to like this game more than I do, but there's these little things that stack up for me because I should love everything about this on paper, but like first of all, because I've been playing it recently as well, a friend of mine convinced me to reinstall it with the new updates and stuff.
Might
I'm
play it
still getting
right after this.
I'm still getting really annoying technical problems.
Oh,
Like,
really?
oh yeah, the servers still lag out like crazy. Like I get kicked all the time, not from like a player, but just because like
I've never had that happen to
the
me.
whole game will freeze for like a solid 30 seconds, and then I just get kicked.
Oh.
And it's
Interesting.
super,
I've never had that. I believe you, but
and it's like really annoying. The other thing is like, and this might just be because I'm not as familiar with the game as people who've been playing it since launch. I have I have a hard time with the pacing for this one. It feels like missions feel like they take too long, and like with the difficulties, even though there's a lot of different difficulty settings, it either feels like nothing's happening or way too much is happening all at the same time, and it feels like it never really kind of
I know what you
finds
mean.
that equilibrium for me. And maybe it's just because I'm comparing it too much in my brain to Deep Rock Galactic, and that just isn't fair for anything. But
Yeah.
it's a game that I think is really good, and I just wish I liked it more than
That's
I
fair.
do, and it's
I
infuriating.
I don't disagree with some of your complaints. The pacing is odd, and the difficulty can be odd, especially with the new Illuminate enemies. I feel like they can get really swingy. But I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
But I'm
What's the
I'm
new
not at
enemy faction
all.
again?
They're kind of like alien zombies.
Illuminate.
Yeah, there's a bunch
I
of
think
like
they're
little
called.
alien zombies that are controlled by bigger aliens. They have like War of the Worlds, like walker things
They're cool.
that
They're fun to
really
play
mess
against.
up your
They're
entire day.
Did they go
very.
ooh wee woo wow 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 wee?
I am not at all surprised that this game has had the traction that it's had, though, because it is really, really fun. And I think if you're someone
Yeah.
that doesn't run into those technical problems, and I think if you're someone who understands the game better than I do, the pacing doesn't hurt the experience as much. And so I totally understand why it's as popular as it is, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me the thing with Helldivers is has kind of kept it from being, or kept me in a similar position as to Wyatt, where I really should like this game in every way on paper, because I love Earth Defense Force and other games of this type. The big difference for me with from EDF to Helldivers is that Helldivers plays way better in multiplayer, but
Yeah.
you really, every time I have played Helldivers in public multiplayer, it has been a bad experience, like actively unfun to get through, because people either just don't know what they're doing, or they move, don't communicate, and you can't get through what you're trying to do. And I think for me, it's just not like, I will only play this game with friends, and I don't have enough people playing this at once to make it sustainable to play that way.
I haven't had that problem with public matches, but I think most of my public matches were on lower difficulties. So I don't think
Yeah.
it mattered as much. And now I've been playing with friends more and on higher.
And I think a lot of that just comes down to, like, there's not really a some people will play this game solo. You have to play it in a really specific way to do that, and it's a way that I don't find fun, at least. So I think for me, it's
you're
really
just
just
crazy
like
if you do that.
And
Honestly,
again, I think that
Yeah.
the pacing issues become much worse in solo because you don't have 3 other people to, help out with objectives or whatever. So it just takes forever.
Yeah, it's just a big time commitment too, because Helldivers matches can last anywhere from just a couple minutes to being like 45 minutes to an hour of nonsense.
Also, if you try and matchmake into matches and stuff like that and just join a bunch of randos, more often than not, it's like right at the end of a mission. And so I'm in there for like 30 seconds and then the Pelican takes off. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's just a lot of little things that tend to get in the way of me really having a great time with it. But that's I'm also playing it on PC, and it's not the console it's meant to be played with. There's a lot of things that I think just stop me from having as much fun as I could with it, even though I like it. I think the problem now is that I've missed like 30 war bonds.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Straight up, just if I log in again, I'm just at the same place I was before, and I'm like, okay, I just can't keep up at this point with what's going on in the game. It's just
Yeah.
too much stuff. Yeah.
But I really like the communal like story that's happening, where it's like, oh, we've gotten an order from high command or whatever, and then everyone has to work together in order to get like community goals completed. And there's other games
Yeah.
that kind of do that, like Finals kind of does something similar, but there's a real sense of camaraderie there, which is partially why I think the game has such a strong community, is because it really encourages people to work together for these like
They were
global missions, which
players
is
were
great.
so effective at it just last night. Like I went to log in and play with a friend. We're like, okay, what's the major order? We'll go contribute.
Mhm.
Where is that enemy faction that we're supposed to go kill?
obliterated it already.
They're
Gone already.
Oh,
All right.
Thankfully, like
damn.
another wave spawned, but
There's the Helldivers talk. I've got one to bring us home with. Alex, did I give you the chance to give one for this round of things? Because I said it's the last round. I don't remember if you mentioned a game or not.
I thought I opened up with Dragon's Dogma 2 for that.
Okay, you might have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I wasn't skipping over you. Yeah, so games I wanted to mention. I want to give a brief shout out to Wayfinder, just because it's a game that Wyatt and I had a lot of fun with. I will be talking about Wayfinder in our next episode. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it over time if we keep playing it. Get back to it at some point. But really good game. Definitely recommend checking it out. We've already talked about it a bunch, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. The other game that I want to mention that is my actual slot for this, that I love this game. I just can't find a place to put it on the list because it's 50 games. And that's UFO 50. So I think UFO 50 to me is one of the best like indie things I've played in a long time. It's got 50 games made by various members of indie development communities. A lot of it was built by the person responsible for Spelunky. Very, very fun. Most of the games are good. There's one or two that are pretty iffy, but I think most of them are very enjoyable on their own. But the thing that really stands out to me about this game is the commitment to making a timeline of events that creates, like, these games are not just random games. There are sequels to games in the 50 games within the 50 games. And you can see, like, and track how they are sequels to each other, in the idea of these indie devs trying to come up with, like, the games that would have been on a fake NES competitor. And it's really, really interesting. It's just handled in such a unique way, where, like, there's a Zelda, like, that's one of the last games that is actually, like, an incremental sort of idle game at points, where you have to, like, let it tick in real time and then go back, and that gives you the resource you need to adventure and do other things. You've got just some really fun, like, party games and fighting things. There's one where you're doing, like, samurai tennis.
Oh, yes!
That shit
So
was
much
really
fun.
Love
It was
that
really,
one.
really fun. And it's got multiple characters, and that's just one of the 50 games in this big collection of things. And just the fact that it's so cohesive and cool. And there's just lots of ideas that I haven't seen before. Like, there's a turn-based heist game where you're playing, like, Wild West robbers.
Yeah.
We couldn't figure out how to play that, and then we realized partway through that, like, the way that game works is you take turns, you have 10 seconds within your turn of real time to move and do things, and then it swaps to the other player.
Cool.
And you, like, interact with things. You can set up traps. You can, like, drop turrets down that'll shoot as they're controlling, like, a team of people coming through. And it's just super interesting how all of this works. I haven't even gotten through all the games. Like, I've played through a bunch of them, but have not delved into everything there. And just seeing, like, the idea of, like, the games having spin-offs and sequels, like this pilot quest based on the other series of games, which you fly this little UFO capsule around. There's a rail shooter version of that UFO capsule game, which is, like, the third in the series that attempts, like, a fake 3D thing.
What was the walrus game with the fishes? walrus battling.
Waldorf's Journey, I think.
Yes.
That was great.
This is a true
'cause
commitment to the bit right here.
it's just like it's
true.
so
That's
it's such an insane concept, and it's committed so well and executed
yeah.
so well. And yeah, there's one or two games that are really hard to understand. There's, like, an Ant RTS that I just could not figure out.
Yeah, I mean, also that's how NES games are. So
That is how
Yeah,
NES games are,
true.
but a number of them play way better than NES games did. So I would have liked had everything been as understandable or as, like, playable as a lot of it, but there's one that really stood out to me too. Of, like, there's a strategy, like a grand strategy game in there that is a, like,
My God.
tile-based dinosaur tribes fighting over
Ryan.
resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there something that's like Advance Wars in there somewhere? Please tell me there is.
There might be. I may
Ryan,
not have
I
played
need
it.
this. Ryan,
The
I need this.
the sort of the game I was about to mention, the dinosaur one, kind of has Advance Wars mechanics where you, like, you have dinosaur tribes, you pray to dinosaur gods that let you do
Oh my
specific
God.
actions on your turn,
Okay,
and some of
okay.
those are, like, invade with an army, at which point they, like, auto battle as your armies
Okay.
clash with other dinosaurs, and you can, like, take over territory. It's a really cool little game that totally could have been released on its own for, like, $5 and done really well.
Wow.
There's tons of really cool stuff there. It's also just a great time in local co-op too.
Hell
So yeah, UFO 50, very fun. Heavily recommend checking it out if you have any nostalgia for that era of video games at all, or just interest in it. All right, I think that's everything. Anyone have, like, a burning final game that they wanted to mention, or are we good until next week when the bloodbath can begin for our
Fortnite.
Oh
awards?
boy.
Fortnite.
Battle Royale?
Like, that video's
God.
up. You can see Brett and I losing our
my
minds playing
God.
Fortnite.
And we, like, suck so bad. We need to do that again and not suck.
Yeah, we
next
need to
time,
not
dude.
suck as hard as we did. To be fair, we
I
almost
think I
won,
have
like, 2
all
times.
the Miku skins now.
We were, like, the second team
Okay,
remaining
good.
in, like, 2 of those attempts.
We
Oh.
fucked it up, dude. We didn't get one victory royale. I can't fucking believe it.
No victory royales. All right. Well, it's time for shoutouts. And I'm gonna leave mine for last, so everyone else can go.
I thought we were gonna leave mine for last because I know mine's gonna be long.
Yours can go before because mine is very specific.
Okay.
God.
Okay.
I'm
So much
gonna
planning.
be selfish. I'm just gonna shout out myself.
Yeah,
we
nice.
Great.
did
Yeah, we love it.
Thanks, guys. Thank
Sweet.
you so much. No, we did a fundraiser this weekend at the place that I work in Seattle. We were part of over 150 businesses that were doing a fundraiser to help immigrants in the area
Hell
have
yeah.
places to live, have places to go, if they're having a hard time and that sort of thing. And if you want to go to the article that sounds like whatever I just said on Fox 13 for the Seattle news, you could see me on the news being interviewed by the
Very
lady
fun.
with the microphone,
Oh
and
boy.
nobody else wanted to do it, and I was like, I mean, we have to because this would be really good publicity, but I really don't want to fucking do it either. This sucks. And I no one else wanted to, so I did it, and it was really scary. And I realized only afterward that only I was mic'd up and she didn't have a microphone at all, so they could have edited me to say anything. And I was wearing a shirt with like Russian text on it for the movie Stalker, and so they
Oh
totally could have
no.
like spun me to be like some sort of communist, like I don't know, like whatever Fox News does. Like I don't know, but they didn't, so it's okay. But anyway,
Okay, cool.
yeah, I'm proud of me for doing
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Awesome.
Wow.
Someone has to follow that now.
Yeah. Sounds like it's
Yeah,
you now,
have
Wyatt.
fun, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna follow it up with something equally important. You know,
Of course.
Oh boy.
my girlfriend and I recently we marathoned all three Austin Powers movies.
Nice.
One night, one sitting, one go.
That is equally
Um,
important.
Man, I haven't seen those movies in a long time. But when I was watching them, I was like, wow, this is really where my sense of humor came from. It was like my dad quoting, just doing endless dad jokes and these movies.
That's a good basis.
I
That's
will
a
say,
solid foundation.
I will say, I don't think watching those movies in a like a marathon setting is necessarily the best way to do it, because especially when you get to the third one, the same jokes over and over again get a little fucking mind numbing. I'm not gonna lie.
Groovy, baby.
Um, but I think all three of them have really funny bits throughout. If you're into that kind of humor, which is just like dumbest humor imaginable. If you're into those kind of things, I think all three of them have great bits. Like I love the third one when they're fighting fat bastard in like a sumo um like locker room, and he's like about to do this crazy flip and he looks behind him to make sure his like wire team is ready to like pull him across the giant pool. Just so many funny, like stupid but creatively stupid, if that makes sense. That's the best way to
Totally.
describe that sense of humor.
All right. Our Alex's.
All right, I can go. Mine will be short. Shout out to, I don't know, Micro Center, I guess. Had to make a run there today, fixing my partner's computer that seems like there's a bad motherboard probably. So went and got a motherboard and some new RAM. Ooh boy. Hard not to walk out of there with an upgrade, but my wallet thanks me for not doing it. But it's fun. I always love going around, wandering around and looking at computer parts and 3D
It's
printers.
a fun
and
store to
stuff.
go to. When the scalpers aren't taking all the GPUs.
Oh yeah. It was like
acting like rabid
a
animals. in there.
desolate crater where Nvidia once sat.
Yep.
Boy.
All right, Alex, bring us home.
All right. All right. I'm gonna so bear with me here. I have only ever watched like maybe 30 seconds of any card opening video or Twitch channel ever. But for my shout out, we're gonna be unwrapping 3 Webkins card packs.
Hell
Oh my god.
So let's go
It's
with
the
the first
booster
one here. I'm
pack
sorry.
opening time, baby.
I'm sorry I don't have a hand cam. Also, my hands are incredibly sweaty, so this is very hard to do. But I have something that'll make that easier.
Oh my god, he's gonna kill him.
What if we find out one of these
oh.
Webkins cards is worth like $300?
That was smooth. That was a nice tear right there. Alrighty.
Oh yeah, we
Alright,
got some of
so-
the
Oh,
health.
you've opened the pack. It's devalued now.
Right. So I wanted to mention this too beforehand. On the back of there, it tells you the odds for finding certain cards. Pack contains 5 trading cards and 1 code card. Chase cards include challenge cards, 1 in every 2 packs. Curio Shop, curiosities, 1 in 9. Doodles, 1 in 18. Free Webkins online pet, 1 in 36.
Do you have idea, Alex? Apparently, I just looked this up. These still work. You can redeem these on Webkins.
Okay, so I'm gonna hide the code with my hand when I show these on screen. Ratios are based on entire run and do not reflect odds for any specific box. Game rules card included. Multiple packs of cards are required to play this game. So, first off, we have that is the code card. Ooh, we got a Smarty Pants.
Literally illegible. Actually
The lighting,
illegible.
the lighting in here is awful.
This is
Let's.
everything I imagined.
We got.
You're holding up like the Lovecraft text that kills you. You're holding up the King in Yellow right now, and you can't even comprehend it.
Brett, I don't wear a mask. So we got the Smarty Pants. We got arcade game Bonanza. This card is in a different orientation than the one previous to it.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you can put it in defense position.
Yeah. You gotta put it face down as a trap card.
All right, we got.
Can you tap
we got
that for mana?
So now we got a pet cat, Alley Cat. This cool kitty must be from the big city, but sure loves it in Kinsville.
I think my sister had that one.
This is
And then
gonna
we
be
got.
the
Ooh,
longest shout out in 001 radio history.
It really is
Every
gonna be.
single one. Please do not read the full description of every single
here
one.
for
You
a
can just
whole
show what it
episode.
is.
Give us the highlights, the ones that
Alright,
are most
You're
we
doing
have
a piece
we have
for
the
later
character-
stream.
We have the character host Quizzy TM,
Oh, Quizzy's pretty good. I like Quizzy.
and then we have an item exclusive, Yang Yin Blossom,
Perfect.
Okay.
and that's it for the first pack.
That's
Time
the first
for number
pack?
2.
I feel like you're getting your money's worth with these pack openings, Alex.
How long have
I
you
am.
had these? Like,
I have no idea. Let's see, what's a date on these? Is there a date on these?
I doubt you're just gonna find a date on a trading card.
Probably,
Just
well,
go
probably
there,
like a
copyright.
copyright notice, right? Let's see.
Maybe on the card itself.
I think we
but-
already know the era, you
Ooh.
know?
I'm like in my head reviewing
I'd
the
be-
decisions that I've made in my life that led me up to this moment.
No, but there's serial numbers like batch 1,
could be in bed.
44 out of 80 for the Yang Yan.
Okay.
Okay. Second
Looking-
pack open.
Looking to see if there's any
longest shout out ever.
looking to see if there's any latent Scientology imagery in any of these cards.
Oh my god. Alrighty.
Hey,
Getting the
pull up
code pack
eBay. Somebody
code
start
card out of the
searching.
way.
See how much these chase cards are worth.
All right, we got a cash cow trophy. We got another pet, farm cow.
What other kind is there?
Character game, Zaki is Zingod.
That's fucking crazy. It's not okay. That's a
It's
weird
wild.
character.
Oh my god.
Oh, item, furniture, buried bone fridge. Ooh,
Perfect.
a
Great.
kitchen essential. Oh, and then we have another one of these. So there must be like one of these alternated cards and everything. So we have It's Raining Cats and Dogs, a challenge card.
Oh,
Hallelujah.
perfect.
Maybe they're alt arts, but they misunderstood that it's altered orientation and not alternate.
Does it
art.
tell you what your item code is, Alex, that you got?
Yeah, it does. I have not
Don't
been
read that
showing
out
those
on
on screen
stream?
because
Somebody could
it's
take it.
still active.
Oh,
Bro
does it
actually
tell you like
wants
what
to
you
redeem
get
them.
when you put it in?
Oh, Oh, good question. Let's.
$5.
Because
let's see.
apparently there are Webkinz chase cards.
Let's see. Challenge game rules, feature code. Enter these codes at the code shop in Webkinz World to receive some exciting prize. It doesn't tell you on the card.
So you've got to. Your job now is you need to make a Webkinz account and redeem these cards.
I have a Webkinz account, Ryan.
You gotta reawaken that thing.
Oh my god, everyone's gonna be dead inside it if like Webkinz can starve or become depressed or something to that account. All right, last pack. God, opening things with this knife is satisfying. I love you, Renus.
I'm gonna have to clip this part of the show out and have it as its own video going on.
Alrighty, arcade game Picnic.
Nice. That seems like a fun arcade.
Wow,
it's UFO 50.
Ants. I'm assuming you steal food from the pet cat, a Persian.
That doesn't look like a Persian, but okay.
It's Webkinz art. That isn't the messed up 3D art that it is now, apparently. Another host. We have Chef Gazpacho.
Nice.
Oh.
An action. I think this is the first one of these we got. Spin the Wheel of WoW.
Wow. I've been spun.
Alex, I mean this in the best way. I want to kill you right now.
I've fully checked out right now. That's the only way I can get through the rest of this.
For the final card of all these 3 packs, it's an item. It's a prize. Brett, there's a character that's coming back here. Zacky's Quest Trophy.
Perfect.
Why is he gold? Why is he chrome gold?
It's a trophy.
Gold Quest Trophy. I feel like you got some good pulls here, Alex. Maybe we can resell those for like 30 cents on eBay.
I think so.
Okay.
This was well worth the psychic damage.
Yeah, that was perfect. I feel drunk.
Wow.
And I'm gonna make it worse right now, because we're gonna skip straight from drunk to hangover for you. So I need you to open up Steam, please. This is my show.
What am I looking at?
Open up Steam and check your messages.
Oh my god.
You should have an inbox notification.
How did that get there? I think there's malware on my computer, and it's called Destiny 2 Bungie 30th Edition pack.
I don't think so, Ryan. I think it's real. This is really happening.
And I want to pull the curtain back a little bit too. Before the show, Wyatt was like, am I gonna have to pay for this? And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. Now, this gift, I did not just now send this to you. I got this and scheduled it to arrive during the end of this episode last week.
Oh my god.
So, to use for the show.
You evil mastermind.
Listen. Receiving a gift from anyone is a beautiful thing, right? It shows them that they are thinking of you. It shows them that they... It's a great show of friendship, of romance, whatever. I have never in my life wanted to hit the decline gift button more than in this very moment.
But this is where you can get the Halo weapons, Wyatt.
That is very true. You get the BXR and the Forerunner rifle.
See, now that's just bad design. Why would they remind me of a much better sci-fi shooter that I could be playing instead?
Because you have to play this one.
Because you're mandated. You're court mandated to play through Grasp of Avarice. So
we just got Brett back. We're gonna lose Wyatt now.
This is my last episode on the podcast. I declare podcast bankruptcy, and I am fucking out of here.
All right, perfect. Well, on that note, and Wyatt receiving the 30th anniversary pack for Destiny 2, I think we're done. We gotta wrap it up.
I'm done.
All right.
I'm done with all of this right now.
Trust me, we're
Absolute cinema.
We'll be back next week with our awards ceremony showcase for the 2024 video games that we played, liked and whatnot. Wyatt's gonna spiral into a pit of madness, and we'll see if he shows up next time.
Alex, you better have some more Webkinz packs for next episode.
Where's my liquor?